Michael from Retroblasting returns this morning. Grab your Geode dolls. It's time to play with Midnight's Edge in the morning. Good morning. It's another week in YouTube land. What a way to kick it off with us here at Midnight's Edge. We appreciate you, all of you out in the chat. Welcome, 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 one and all, and rocks. Don't forget the rocks. Andre, how you doing this morning?
Greetings. I'm doing good, thank you. And you know what? I have to say, I feel that there is one topic that we have neglected to talk about on Midnight's Edge, and that is merchandise and toys. He-Man, Transformers, G.I. Joe, and now rocks. So I can't wait to get into that with Retroblasting.
Well, Andre, you know, it's already started. The merchandising for the Star Wars: The High Republic. I have in my hand the Geode action figure right here.
Fantastic. There we go.
Available in your backyard or anywhere.
The sideshow version's much better. That must be the real crap.
And the beauty of it is they're dirt cheap too. I mean, it's, you know.
Hey. Geode has a very, very historic and long-running film career. He has probably been in over 250,000 films for all we know. I mean,
yep, he stood behind Captain Kirk and the Gorn during their fight.
Yeah.
He played Stonehenge in a lot of different movies. So
now we're not doing fucking Stonehenge.
Well, don't forget his appearance with all of his brethren from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoons from their Dimension X villains.
That's right, and he headlined the Rock Lords cast in the 80s briefly.
Yeah. Oh, he was also in the 90s Flash Gordon cartoon as some of Ming's minions.
That's right. Oh, and he was in Inhumanoids as the Mutors.
Yes, he just gets around. This is a really prolific
guy.
guy.
Star Wars are lucky to have someone as well-traveled and with such a diverse career as Geode joining their team.
Oh, he's like having Alec Guinness in the first movie. I mean, he's that storied an actor. Yeah.
Well, you know what?
I don't know about that. I don't know if Alec Guinness has that many credits.
Well, you know what, Tom Connors, I wrote my first hit record, Jailhouse Rock, about Geode. He was in prison at the time, and you know, I said I got to help this boy out. Thank you very much. So
he was in prison for trafficking rocks. Yeah,
that's right. There, underage rocks at that too.
Indeed. So yeah, we have Rob with us here, plus we have Retroblasting, who I'm very, very happy to have back on the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Always happy to be on this show. Thank you for inviting me onto the morning show on this Monday. I'm excited to talk about all this stuff.
Yeah, and also joining us, of course, is our good friend Script Doctor.
Hello. Yes. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me on.
So,
glad to talk all this cool, fun stuff today.
Read any good scripts lately?
Yeah, I've read something that was kind of neat. I got my hands on the True Lies pilot by Matt Nix, and it's all right. Could be a pretty good show, I guess.
This would be the True Lies show that none of us was aware of existed right up until this moment, right?
Oh yeah. I've heard about it for a few months now. I think I mentioned it to you guys in passing, but I think you're like, I don't know if that's the case. But yeah, it's if the script circulates, I don't know if it's got an improvement deal yet. But it's definitely fits into that kind of family of Magnum PI, MacGyver, Hawaii Five-0, that type of style, like an aesthetic, at least in the writing wise. And it's it's got some really good parts into it, but it's also got a lot of really bad parts, but not in the cringe or woke area of things. Just kind of like, oh, that's what they went with it, sort of thing, without revealing too many spoilars. Because I actually have great respect and reverence for Matt Nix.
Yeah. That's actually a really, really good start. If they avoid some woke stuff, that was going to be like my first question there.
It's definitely not a retelling of the film, and it's its own thing, its own pilot. It goes in its own direction. All the names are pretty much the same, and with a little bit of updated aspects. But Harry Tasker is still a computer salesman in the show, so don't worry about that. They didn't make him anything more advanced than that.
Well, that's always good to hear. And now that we have introduced the panel, we also have a very, very cool audience with us today that we really appreciate. We couldn't do it without you guys. As Mags points out for $5 on screen, thank you so much. According to Ancestry.com, Geode can trace his lineage from Stonehenge. Maybe. Yeah, that's some very nice company
I've got
there.
I've got a vintage Geode character toy right here. I mean, he turns into a human in this role of his, which was, was fascinating.
Very fascinating. So yeah, before we move on with any of that, I just want to say greetings to our audience. So great to have you all here. Tjena hoj is here. That's Swedish, by the way. And we have a Canadian Spider-Man, so countryman of your script, Doctor, which is awesome. And David Rayner points out that he's a doctor and not a stonemason. So very cool.
I'm a doctor, Jim, not a bricklayer.
Yeah.
We even got a little bit more information on Leox Giassi as well, so we may check into that.
We'll get into that. There's a lot to say about what we learned about him. But before then, we also get much love from Vien Anakin, so that's nice. And we of course also have Natasha, our ever-trusted wrench, in the chat. And to everyone else who's joining that I cannot point out, still thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate that. We have a few super chats as well to go through. We're going to get through every single one of them. We're just going to start up with some of the first ones. Can no longer bring them up on screen. But the first one is from Cesario JPN, who said for $5, Geode should be voiced by Dwayne Johnson. Even get the opportunity to use one of his taglines. If you smell what the Force is cooking. Yeah, that would be nice. And
I got 5 pieces of candy. I got a chocolate bar. I got a quarter. I got a rock.
I think there's going to be loads of rocks in stockings and Halloween bags and everything all across the year.
Little did Charlie Brown know that bag was worth hundreds of millions of dollars later in his life.
I keep thinking of the Star Trek sketch that Howard Stern did back on the Channel 9 show, where he just breaks character, picks up a fake rock, starts beating Baba Booey over the head with it, and says, "These are the rocks in my head for signing with Channel 9." I'm like, these are the rocks in your heads, Lucasfilm. Really, seriously. Who thought this was a good idea? But we'll get into that.
Yeah. Well, actually, we found out who actually came up with it, but
I can't wait to hear.
It was one of the writer's boyfriends.
So it wasn't even one of the writers. Like this writer, the writer whose boyfriend came up with this. Does that writer identify as
Tom.
It was Claudia Gray's boyfriend.
I was about to say, Tom, you shouldn't be making assumptions about Pablo Hidalgo like that.
Oh my God, Geode's here.
Yes, hello. Nice to be with you all. It's a great amount of effort. I washed up on shore. People kept throwing me back into the ocean. It's just, damn.
The worst ideas in fiction always come from somebody who's related to somebody in the writing pool. Like, for example, when we were growing up, there was a terrible G.I. Joe called Crystal Ball. And Crystal Ball was actually created by Stephen King's son, who was a little kid at the time. And Stephen King was friends with the guys at Hasbro. And so they hey, can you make my kid's character this magician guy, like an action figure? And he's still a notorious peg warmer in the history of toys to this day. So there's a track record for don't take ideas from your friends or your friends of friends if you're in the writing pool. It's a very bad idea. Every time.
Just as a side note, G.I. Joe will in my G.I. Joe mini doc, Crystal Ball will not be featured in it. just for purposes of sanity.
Another example of that is that movie Monster Trucks from Paramount.
Yes.
was actually the idea of the studio head's 4-year-old grandson.
Why does that not surprise me?
And they spent a shitload of money on it.
Yep.
Damn
And
near.
these are the
They
same
are
people
terrible.
who will not listen to fans. Go
Nope.
figure.
They'll listen to 4-year-olds, but not fans. So anyway, Andre, what else we got for super chats? I saw a few of them roll in early. That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, because again, that really keeps the light on. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate that. Bruce Campbell was in Congo, says for $5 Australian, formerly Darking 616 here. So everyone know that. Darking 616 is now Bruce Campbell was in Congo. Same time. I'd buy a rock as the navigator if they were in the form of silicon chips. Oh, wait, that's called a droid. Yeah, that's a good point right there. And Panzerkrog says for $10, thank you so much. That really helps out. And he says, the writers of the High Republic must quite literally be high. People actually got paid to come up with this crap, masquerading as storytelling. Still, Geode probably has more personality than Ray.
Ouch.
yeah, some tough competition there. Piece of wood versus an actual rock. Who will win?
Yeah.
And Kit Kat says for £5 British pounds, Geode and Giassi. That's gay as I. Gay sex oil. Leo X is gay. All the possible different variations of it are designed to take our minds off of Gina Carano. Is it working? Have we forgotten? Tom, have you forgotten about what they did to Gina Carano?
No, I haven't.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying this is how you really. This is what you think is going to distract us from Gina Carano. All this is another cherry on top of a very large shit sundae.
You know what? I just realized I know where Geode got his navigation training. Have you all seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off and the ending where they try to roll back the speedometer?
Oh, yeah.
Helped them try to do that?
I just can't believe that they would be so crass as to anagram that name like that. I mean, okay, let's say you're creating a character with a different sexual orientation. That's fine, whatever you want to do. But are you really going to be so insulting as to then make an anagram that hints to that sexual orientation out of the name? That's crazy.
Right. This is Star Wars, and I've been saying this since Geo dropped like a rock, as apparently. No pun intended. But I've been saying this. This is Star Wars as seen through the eyes of a second grade teacher or a grammar school librarian who has no fucking clue what Star Wars is and has never seen it before. Seriously. That's what this is.
Yeah, through the eyes of someone who patronizes anything that is science fiction or fantasy, who thinks it's beneath people.
Oh, the kids will like this. Yeah, I'm speaking on their level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, speaking of kids, here's the description for Leox Giassi.
Yeah, let's hear this. And before you read it, Tom, I just want everyone to keep in mind what Michael just said about like a character's sexual orientation. It's fine if he has a different one, but like it really is no need to make that the focal point and the sole reason d'etre for the whole character. Now keep that in mind. Tom, carry on reading about Leox.
I honestly don't think Star Wars has ever really been about sex. But anyway, Leox Giassi is a charming rogue pilot of the vessel who may or may not have a fondness for spice. Despite his undeniable good looks, romantic and sexual encounters are not imperative to him. In fact, he identifies as asexual. Why is this shit even that important?
It's unreal.
He's a drug user who identifies as asexual.
Yeah. His primary focus is piloting the vessel with his navigator, Geode, or the Bind Guild. And this is the official motherfucking... This isn't made up shit. This is straight off of StarWars.com.
They finally have what they've wanted. They have an asexual, non-threatening Han Solo who's sexually ambiguous.
Well, basically, they have a gay man who is asexual on top of that. So, but yeah, Michael, you were saying, in light of what you were saying, like, do you recall back in the day of all earlier Star Wars toys and stuff when it said on the box the character sexual preference? Do you remember that day?
I am so glad you just said that, because I have just pulled up the character page for the Star Wars storybook from 1977 that introduces everybody before it begins, because I wanted to read some of these to you. Luke Skywalker, a young farmer who lives with his aunt and uncle on the planet Tatooine. That's it. That's all we need to know.
It still tells us infinitely more about him than this fucking thing does here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi, a good and just warrior of the Old Republic who possesses a special power called the Force. Darth Vader, the Imperial Dark Lord who uses his special powers to try and crush the rebellion. Princess Leia Organa, a young senator who is secretly leading the rebellion against the evil Imperial forces. Han Solo, captain of the Millennium Falcon, a Corellian starship. This is what you do when you create a Star Wars character. That's what you write. That's what we need. This is insane. I mean, what they're doing is just insane.
Well,
Script doctor. I just want to get script doctor as a writer who has to introduce characters to the audience. What do you think is the better way to go about it? What they did back in the 70s? Or what they do today, where they have to emphasize in the third line that despite his good looks, Leok Skiasi chooses to stay away from sexual encounters because he's asexual and he'd much rather pilot a ship.
Michael, does it say if C-3PO is a gay robot?
I have it right here. It says C-3PO, a tall human-like robot who translates all kinds of languages, including the electronic speech of many robots.
And is super. Thanks for asking.
Well, those types of descriptions, those are still par for the course today in writing. It's the ones that we see here that are few and far between, especially in the stuff that I read. And I read a lot of stories and scripts every year. So yeah, when you see stuff like this, it's usually the warning sign that they don't know how to write a good story because they're focusing on the things that are not important to telling a story.
This is the same type of thinking that gave us Bruce Wang in Gotham High in that ridiculous Gotham High graphic novel. Really, it is.
Well, this is worse than that, if you ask me.
Well, yeah, it's worse, but it's the same. It's the same mindset. Like, really.
No, I get you though. But was that the question you were asking, Andre? I didn't mean to interrupt there. Sorry.
Kind of. Because I'm also, and then what I'm thinking is, what if these writers had been there in the 70s or something? I mean, how would they have described the original characters?
They wouldn't qualify as writers. Because the person behind the desk would be like, I don't know anything. What does that mean? You just say, what does that mean? Tell me about who are they? And it's like, they're a gay person. I don't know what that is. It's like, because that's not a real, I mean, that's a part of sexual orientation, but that's not an entire identity.
I don't think it matters. He's not going to be sleeping with the Wookiee.
Yeah, because I bet if these writers right here, if they were writing a description for Luke Skywalker today, like the young farm boy that we saw, I'm sure that they would have emphasized he's a virgin,
non-binary virgin, and sexually ambiguous.
Exactly. Yeah,
and he has a thing for big Starglider.
Well, it's a complete misunderstanding of the 90s term of sex sells. It's like that's not what it means. Like this example here does not fit that type of definition.
I have a thing for big Starlighter too.
Who is the target audience as far as age for these comics at this point? I guess comics aren't for kids anymore, right?
That's a good question. That is actually a very good question.
It's for kids, dog.
It is for kids. The High Republic is for kids. It's intended because that's why it's the future of Star Wars. They think that this is going to be super popular among like the 8 to 14-year-olds, and that they are now going to be hooked by this, and this is how they're going to see Star Wars, thereby securing the future of Star Wars because they're going to be massive fans of Leox, who is gay but asexual, and that's going to bring in a ton of fans.
All right. Well, I'll say what my parents would have said if they caught me reading some shit like this at 8-year-old. What the fuck are you doing reading that pornography smut?
I have a friend who works for Scholastic, and I should probably ask her if any of this is popular. Are you moving any of this? Because
Are you kidding? And you knew somebody, you should get some numbers. Jesus Christ, dude. We can't get any straight numbers on anybody. It's a bestseller. It only sold 12 books.
Because that's 12 bucks, yeah. And the rest, we did that thing, and Jeff did that thing about how they fudge the numbers. They offer up a certain amount of copies to be bought as promotional items. They give them away at speaking engagements or book signings. They resell them at book signings. I mean, oh boy. Leox fucking Gayasi. Really? Seriously.
No, you're probably right about the porn having better characters and story. Have you ever read like the Penthouse
novel
forums and
adaptation?
shit?
No, not only that.
I knew
Bob.
after my first drink, this flight attendant would be giving me the ride of a lifetime. We definitely joined the Mile High Club together. There you go.
Well, Rob, don't you have the novel adaptation of Debbie Does Dallas or something?
Let me tell you, it's absolutely gripping.
It's 6 pages long. It's like Debbie needs some money and she has an idea. They fuck.
Pretty much.
Welcome to
but Michael, upon learning that this actually is for kids, does that change your perspective on the story that that features a rock in any way, shape, or form?
It just continues to reinforce to me that this story group has no survival instincts whatsoever. So, back when they first got Star Wars, there was all of that discussion in the business sense that, and I believe Bob Iger did an interview where he said something to the effect of, we had tried many times to capture the boys market with Treasure Planet and movies like that, and we couldn't. And so we bought Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars so that we would have the boys market. But the moment that they get Star Wars, they immediately turn it into a Disney princess story. And this continues to further reinforce the idea of, where do you guys, meaning the Disney story group, the Lucasfilm story group, where are you going to see your profit come from at this point? Because you've already gotten rightfully beaten up for everything that happened in the sequel trilogy, both not just with characters and everything like that, but terrible writing, nonsensical plotting. And now we've got this going on. It's like they're tripling down on their terrible ideas. And at the same time, they're trying to, put Mandalorian out of its misery, meaning through business politics, because they can't affect it creatively. So they're doing a runaround, and they're hobbling Mandalorian through social media. So and that was the only successful thing they've done. So I am not I'm not able to penetrate this illogic. If I was Spock right now, I would be having a seizure on the bulkhead of the Enterprise. Like, I would just, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the core of the problem is on screen right now, and I apologize if there's children watching. But yeah, I think she is the one who pushed this. And when The Force Awakens was this huge hit, I think Bob just kicked back and said, "Oh, obviously she's Kathleen Kennedy and she knows what she's doing." And I'm not giving him an excuse, but at that point, I think that's pretty much what happened.
Well, sure, but we've seen the fallout from that, and how there was all that talk where they were just going to let her contract run out, and then they didn't, and now Bob Chapek is singing her praises even after.
Oh, come on! Well, he's publicly, of course, he's going to say nothing but nice things about her.
He has no real other choice.
He doesn't like her. People are just going to say, "Well, then why is she still there?" And you can't do that on the public side of things.
Yeah.
I know, but why
and
say
also,
anything at all?
He said this. He said, but because he was asked, this wasn't like a statement that was like. It wasn't like Disney put out a press release where it said,
Right.
Bob Chapek, thinks that Kathleen Kennedy is the bestest ever. No, that never happened. What happened was that he was attending. Like Morgan some banking finance conference.
JP Morgan.
Morgan
JP
Stanley.
Morgan, yeah, Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley. Thank you, not JP.
Yeah,
That's why I
thank
was
you. Yeah,
confused.
Morgan Stanley. What
Morgan
the hell, JP
Stanley, like a
Morgan?
Morgan Stanley conference, and there he was asked head on, and then what is he to say? Like he of course he can say, you know what, she really did a mess of things, and we have such a cleaning up job to do now. He could say that, and then their Disney's price would crash like 10% in the stock instantly afterwards. Or he can do what he has to do, which express full confidence in the people that he has working for him, while at the same time biting his tongue and putting up like the lion cross behind his back or something like that.
Yeah.
But he has no other choice in that particular circumstance but to praise her, no matter how undeservedly. And she got basically the exact same comments as Jon Favreau did and that Kevin Feige did. And anyone can hear that's completely ridiculous, because what Kevin Feige has done and what she has done are leagues and leagues apart, and in the worst way possible.
Yeah.
But that's the other point too. In the industry, you don't on the public stage, you don't speak poorly about anyone because they could be your boss. Doesn't matter at what age they are or what position you hold above them or not. Something can hit the fan real hard, and all of a sudden you're at the bottom, and everybody that you trash talk will remember that forever, especially on the public stage, and keep you away. So that's why you don't do it. You just say the polite things, say the supportive stuff, keep integrity within the industry and within yourself, and chew the lie, if you will, in order to keep your head above water. And that's what they do.
Well, let's get to some super chats, and then we'll talk about the big rock in the middle of the room here.
Indeed. The next one is from Roger Haynes, who sent us a thumbs up super sticker, so thanks for that. And KitKat says for 5 British pounds, Kennedy is trying to undermine Jon Favreau, but it looks as though Favreau's mole with the High Republic camp is secretly fighting back. Yeah, I will say this for Jon Favreau, and this is from Sun Tzu, I believe, that if your enemy is destroying themselves, then let them. That's exactly what they're doing with this. And then in reference to our reaction video when we first learned the news of the rock creature and Leox Geasi, which we did live in our Friday show, STR Red Wolf says, "Hail all. Cue Rob passing out from laughter in 3, 2, 1. Breathe, Rob. Breathe." Yeah, I was worried there for a second. Like, that was rough on you, wasn't it, Rob? Yeah, he's passed out completely already. So there you go. Like, it's too much for him. And Shogun, not Shotgun Gaming, says for 14 Danish kroner. Actually, he sends a unicorn super sticker, so thanks for that. And Lag Nods 1 says for 50 Norwegian krona. That's my countryman. So tusen takk. Hail Midnight's Edge and chat. Keep on rockin'. And Gran Wazoo 42 sent us Doggy super sticker. And Spider Unlimited says for $9.99. Thank you so much. Can we get someone to Photoshop some lobster claws on that stone cold bad boy? But seriously, there is no way this is all real. It has to be a troll, an ultimate FU to the fandom to drive them nuts. Hold that thought, because we'll get into that. And then, here's a great name. Kenneth LaRocque says for 5 Canadian pounds, or $5 Canadian. Thanks to Geode, I am now represented in Star Wars. That's awesome. I'm very happy for you, LaRocque. And Stephen Otten says, "Hail Midnight's Edge and everyone in the chat." And it's a fucking rock. Yeah, that's quite shocking. Joe Pat 87 says for $4.99, look up Legends from the DC animated universe Justice League show. It's a better version of WandaVision, and not just because it's only 44 minutes. Yeah, it doesn't take much to beat that. And the Fessman 93 says, Rock, paper, scissors, Star Wars edition. Is it possible to learn this power? Yeah, we're just waiting for paper and scissors to show up. Then we'll have the full party here. And Sean Carter says, the Geode action figure is the stone-faced version. It's on sale at rock-bottom prices, but trends point to mountain-sized profits. So, yeah, good times there. Daira says for $10, thank you so much. Star Wars reached a point where the game master has had enough. Rocks fall, everyone's dies. Oh, and I didn't see Geode's dad in Raider of the Lost Ark. Oh, he said, oh, and didn't I see Geode's dad in Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah,
well, sure
Geode's dad had a famously more well-rounded personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And Aluvrian Imakara says for $5, not to be outdone by a granite countertop. I finally reacquired materials to produce more 1:6 scale Mikey Spock in action figures.
Hell yeah.
I look forward to seeing them.
Now I gotta say this though, they did a redesign on Geode already because women's groups were not happy about the lack of representation. So we now have the new version of Geode.
Hubba.
You know what? If this show came out, this comic book, and it's literally like a captain who's lost his mind, but the crew is still just stuck with him, and he's named a rock, the navigator or whatever, and it's kind of like the captain going mad kind of situation. Like if they were that smart, which they're not, I have no confidence that they are, but then I would be like, okay, this is funny. This is a send up, like this is interesting, but it's not. This isn't going to be anything like that. It's not Futurama.
Tom, hi, Leslie Headland here. I want to cast that rock in the Acolyte. How do I get a hold of that representation?
The rock's like my eyes are up here.
Well, not only that, it reminds me of the Tick. They did a cartoon episode where the Tick's new sidekick is Little Wooden Boy, and that had more motion and animation, and it was actually funny and used quite cleverly. And all I think of when I look at the rock is like, okay, how does it navigate? It has no appendages.
It wasn't one of the things that says it moves when you're not looking.
Like the Weeping Angels from Doctor
Yeah,
Who?
that's immediately what I thought. You're ripping off the Weeping Angels. Yeah. For God's sake.
Lord. Anyway, back to Super Chats.
Yes, back to Super Chats. Stephen Otten says, Geode is now replacing Christian Slater in the biopic based on my life. And Coraon, Witch in Residence, says for $10 Canadian, can't wait for the Geode action figure goes on sale. Yeah, there will be so many different versions of the Geode action figure. I can't wait to wait for them. I have a couple of out here in my backyard.
Yeah, right.
And Michael Dietz says for $5, Paul Simon, 1965. Quote, I am a rock. I am an island. And Lucasfilm 2021. I am a rock. Full stop.
Great, Tom. We owe Paul Simon 3 cents now. Are you happy?
That's all right.
And Stephen Otten also says, any thoughts on who should play Harry Tasker in the True Lies series?
Good question.
Well,
Boy.
he's described as middle-aged, so 44, and he's big. So
Arnold is still, I can play young.
What's that wrestler? The fun one. The one who was in...
John Cena?
Yeah, thank you. Him.
Sure.
I mean, you're talking about casting, Andre, that makes sense. So that's why I'm doing the math on that. I'm going, what are the chances of casting that makes sense actually happening? And then I'm thinking, no, they'll cast against type.
Mm-hmm.
they'll make Harry Tasker like.
More importantly, though, who do you cast as the Jamie Lee Curtis part?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Right now, someone out there is saying Idris Elba should be Harry Tasker. Where do I vote?
Yeah, evidently. Moving on, Stephen Otten says, any thoughts on... Yeah, no, we just had that one. Jedi Master Zootopia says, Geode spent many years suffering racism in Hollywood in the 70s as people kept him as a pet rock. Glad him is overcoming institutional barriers. Yes, that's a very woke thing of you to say. And the Fessman93 says, does Geode use condoms? We don't know. They didn't say in the description, so we'll have to make sure to request that for the next time.
Leox isn't into sex, so...
Yeah. And Alberto Bonsanto says for 50 Mexican dollars, thank you so much. Question for Geode. I read your mating season starts soon. Could you talk to us about it? I wouldn't be surprised if they say something about that in that book, actually.
Probably.
Yeah. And Uber B-Man says, Giassi sounds like what a stooge would be scribbling on a napkin during a writer's meeting. And Stephanie Yanis, ex-Smuggler's Cantina, she asked the question we were all asking when we learned that Rock was actually created by writer Claudia Gray's boyfriend. So she says, wait, Claudia Gray has a boyfriend? Really? Seriously? Yeah, honestly, I was thinking that too.
You think he's chained to a rock in her basement and that's where he got the idea?
Maybe. Maybe. It's a good question.
Hey, y'all are assuming a lot. It may be somebody who identifies as a boyfriend. You know?
Well, but let's look at the symbolism here. There's hidden messages here because the official illustration of Geode illustrates that there are literally 50 shades of gray on that character.
Oh my!
I like
that. Was good. That was good.
But just like, you know, the fact that I'm reading in the private chat that thing about, oh, yeah, he was so proud of him. Like, really? You're proud of this?
Yeah, this is the quote. For those who didn't hear it, Claudia Gray said, I have to be completely honest here. Geode was not my idea. It was my boyfriend's idea. The minute he said it could be a rock, I knew that was it. He was just immensely proud of this, and I think he should be. Maybe he meant his penis.
Maybe he was talking sarcastically.
Or maybe he is just like her and thought it would be a good idea.
I think he was just excited he had a hard-on for once. He's like, it's a rock, honey.
Yeah, maybe. That probably doesn't happen very often in their
That's
household.
my point.
So, yeah.
Okay, I'm being mean. I'll be good.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll try.
Yeah, I just want to go on record as a writer. My girlfriend has suggested ideas to me, and I have told her to her face they're silly and stupid. And even if she has like scoffed at my remarks on that, it like if she comes up with a great idea and says that I should use it, and I think it's a great idea, I probably might, but I have to fully explore it. I just can't take it just because she's the woman I'm with. Like you just can't do that. It's compromising your integrity as a professional by, you know, acquiescing to a suggestion from a family member or the person that you're sleeping with.
So you would suggest that when the boyfriend of the writer then says, I know, make like this navigator a rock, and the writer actually does it, then their professional integrity was somehow compromised.
Or didn't exist. Because they're so desperate for an idea to suggest that they'll grab anything.
No, I've heard that from writers before too, and like, you know, script will say like every time. That's the worst thing. I think you said this. It was either you or maybe it was Tom, but I think it was you, script, who said like the last thing you want to tell somebody when you're at like a party with your friends or whatever is like you write for a living, because then everybody tells you have a movie idea or a TV idea, and you just got to sit there and listen to them. Or maybe it was Cameron who said it.
Cameron has said it. I've said it. Tom has said it.
All of
my
you
Renette has sent it too. Like
I think anyone who dabbles in writing professionally probably has said a variation of that.
Well, you guys have suggested shows for me to write, and I'm like, okay, I'll listen to the ideas, but I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm fucking serious, script.
Oh, see, there you go. The proof
Yeah, but
is in
not
the pudding
everybody
right
can
there.
come up with shit like nunchucking dinosaurs. You got to admit that.
No, that is a truism there. I think that's true. Not everybody can come up with nunchucking dinosaurs.
That's right. I'm an untapped wealth of ideas.
I really think that Star Wars' position right now, presently, is reflected almost cosmic, like cosmic poetry, in the opening lines of the 1991 Chevy pickup truck commercial, where it says, "When you're the best, you can take a few knocks," and then we hear Bob Seger say, "Like a rock, oh, like a rock." I really do believe that they think they can get away with anything. They think that Star Wars is just a license to print money.
Yeah.
Just put that logo on something.
Well, ironically, then that it's funny you should mention Chevy truck commercials, but look at Chevy truck commercials. They play heavily on nostalgia. What do you always see? Purple Mountain's Majesty, fireworks, veterans at a parade.
Yeah, but the difference is, Rob,
and then you see Chevy, and you see all things like nostalgic Americana. Chevy Silverado, it's like.
But the difference is they're driving over the rocks in those commercials, not with them.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. This is something where they've I know that this phrase has been used way too much in discussions about pop culture, but they have lost the plot. Like, they have forgotten what they are supposed to be working within. And now they've broken it. In the Plinkett review years ago, he said that, Jar Jar's appearance in Phantom Menace, officially broke the Star Wars saga beyond repair. And I'm like, if he only knew where we are now,
Well, I think they got the navigation idea from Wizard of Oz, follow the yellow brick road.
Follow the yellow brick road. Those little fuckers didn't tell her that the red brick road only got you there quicker.
Well, but just to finish, but take a look at who's writing this nonsense. Justina Ireland, who says, "I don't read."
Well, yeah, Claudia Gray, who actually came up with this shit. But
yeah,
no, Eric Kelly, that's the whole point of telling a story. Like, if I tell you the answer now, you'll never read the comic or see the movie or buy the toy.
Remember when Star Wars just gave us badass moments? Yeah. You're like, wow, man. Like, the most badass Star Wars moment I've seen recently was when someone used something like Adobe After Effects and put lightsaber nunchucks over Bruce Lee's nunchucks. I'm like, where is that fucking moment in Star Wars now?
I so want nunchuck.
Well, that was like your granddad's Star Wars that they want to get away from. And in terms of like what has happened there, how could this happen? How could they come up with, well, Leox Giassi for one thing, and then have a freaking rock pilot his ship? Like, many people have asked me, how could this happen? Like, what are they thinking? And I have a suggestion. I want to run it by you guys. I'm really curious to hear what both you think, Michael, and what you think, Script. I think that this is all the result of groupthink. I think that we saw this video, how they were at this retreat over at like Skywalker Ranch or wherever the hell it was, where you had like this big
diversity in dinosaurs.
Diversity in dinosaurs, and they put like diversity 3 times and everything like that. And then they broke down the whole story, how it was all going to interconnect and everything like that. And I kind of think that there's a substantial amount of groupthink there, that they have all tried to outdo each other in how woke they are. At the same time, everyone has like switched off any kind of critical thinking. Anyone that has like any kind of objection, like a rock that's freaking stupid, they're like, no, I better keep quiet so they don't cancel me.
Well, the Rock might be one of those relatable characters they have on that board there.
Yeah, that's the irony. That's probably the best character in the whole High Republic saga. But that aside, I think there must be a substantial amount of groupthink, that they have isolated themselves, gotten any kind of critical feedback or anything like that from anyone that wasn't there or who has like a better grasp on reality than they do. They have written this all in a state of groupthink, convinced of their own superiority and the awesomeness and wholesomeness of what they're writing, and the result that comes out is that you have Leox Giassi, and the character description specifies that he chooses to not engage in sexual encounters because he's asexual, no matter how handsome he is, because he'd rather pilot the ship, the one that's called Vessel, and is navigated by a rock.
Is it possible that all of these ideas, and I mean this very seriously, is it possible that all of these ideas came from the groupthink reflex of, I have to come up with something that cannot possibly offend anybody, at least on it offends us as fans because it's so stupid. But in their groupthink bubble, it's like, well, a rock, we don't have to worry about its identity. We don't have to worry about this. We don't have to worry about it offending anybody. Rocks are accessible to everyone. Ooh, if we give the ship a name, the name could be problematic for somebody out there. So why don't we just call the vessel the Vessel? I mean, it's terrible. It's a terrible thing that they're doing, but is that yeah.
I just think they're
the most inert thing.
Yeah. I just think they're just not very good at what they do. To me, just. But if I'm sorry to cut you off there, Michael. But, but let's just take a look though. I mean, at this board though. I mean, you have a couple things that are Star Wars
authentic feelings,
authentically lived in. It's authentically lived in. Surprise, diversity. I mean, the things that they think go on in fiction. Where is? I mean, and look at the Star Wars
University.
But diversity, yeah. But let's take a
no
look at Star Wars.
University is better.
Yeah. But take a look at the Star Wars column, not pro-war. It's got war in the title.
Yeah.
Droids, scope, mythic, lightsaber, no single character of the Force. Where is Hero's fucking journey on this list? Nowhere.
Well, see, we're missing some shit on the bottom here, and that's probably the good stuff. But no, university is not a word. I mean, it's a word, but it's not a word in the way they're trying to use it.
High Republic.
I think they're trying to use universality or something like that.
High Republic, Relic Hunters, University, Dinosaurs, representation. They've got representation diversity twice. What's this? Yeah. What does this say? Of something about Arthurian legends? These are people that have no idea what Star Wars is. They're just taking elements out of things that they think Star Wars is, or other stuff that they've seen. They have no idea what Star Wars is. They've never known what Star Wars is.
Not only do they not know, I think they do not care. But
no, these are people that come into something. Well, you can't tell me not to do this. These are fictional characters. You could do anything you want. That is the mindset amongst these writers. These are fictional characters. You can do whatever you want. No, you can't. Okay.
Do we know what the name of this comic book series is going to be?
It's not a comic book series. It's like a young adult novel. And yeah, I got it right here.
Okay.
I think it's Into the Dark. Is that the one?
Oh, they're using the word dark again?
Yeah, Into the Dark. It'll be released in a few days. So it's not out yet. And it's not even a comic book. It's an actual young adult novel
with lots of asexual lovingness.
Yeah.
Maybe
Jesus Christ, it says 448 pages.
Who the fuck was it?
Why did it?
I hope that they've used a huge font.
Maybe I should read it as George Takei.
No,
Gilbert Godfrey.
Well, who the fuck wrote this shit?
I would like to be the first person to say it's the rock that made the vessel crash in less than 12 pages. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, my favorite comments in the chat have been that the rock killed the dinosaurs. And the other one was the rock. Geode says, the yellow brick road is people. Those are my favorite two
Arthurian legends.
I can't get over that this thing is 448 pages.
But they don't have 800-page novels, Andre.
Yeah, no. So they had to create some. They had to create some 448 page one filled with gay sexual Han Solos and Stones.
He's so fabulous.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if they do an audiobook and they get Pauly Shore to narrate it, then maybe I'll check it out. But
there's going to be a line in there where he turns to Geode and says, I couldn't get through this without you because you're my rock.
Oh,
Hey, buddy, we're gonna read Star Wars. It's like awesome.
Part of me almost feels bad for Claudia Gray because that, you know, she did her best, but at the same time, I'm like,
No,
no,
Boylan did his best.
Why do you feel sorry for her?
Yeah, but then I snap back and says, no, you brought this on your fucking self. You're not good at what you do.
She could be doing her own thing. Like, that's the thing that bothers me is like a lot of these people is like, yeah, it's great. You're working in Star Wars and this is what you want to do. This is really what you want to do.
Well, honestly, I understand that perfectly because then she has Star Wars in her resume. That's going to open a few doors. Yeah, but I understand perfectly. I don't think that she's like in it because she thinks that, wow, this is what I'm going to do from here on out. This is my rest of life. No, but just to get that out of there. And again, script and Michael, I want your thoughts on this. Speaking of the author, I submit that to her, this is just another job, something that's going to further her career as a writer. That's the only reason she does this. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's how corporate. Pardon me. That's how corporate culture has been working for the past few decades. Is there are no more, just like in comic books, where it's now rock star artists, not journeyman artists that work with the same publisher for their whole career. They just use, you know, I need to, you know, do 12 issues of X-Men so that I can have that on my resume so that I can jump and get another job. Same thing with this. I just need Star Wars on my resume because I'm not actually thinking about investing in this franchise and making it better for the audience. I just am thinking about my career path, and whatever happens from this, it doesn't concern me because I'll be gone by the time the repercussions of what I push through happen.
They'll be on the lifeboat as the Titanic sinks. The whole goal is basically to get enough of a reputation across successful franchises so that when they want to pitch their own thing that they know will get rejected, they'll get the okay, be able to do it, and then they'll see the actual true test of their merit.
And why aren't they ever held to account in that regard? Like, why when they say I did Star Wars, why don't people ever dig deeper in the entertainment industry and go, yeah, but the Star Wars you did was terrible? Like, it's
usually lack of time.
Okay, you know what?
Unfortunate, yeah.
Okay, you know what? I'm looking up Claudia Gray, see what else she's done. Okay, she's done a couple Star Wars books. She wrote a Princess Leia book, but she's done something called the Evernight series. Now, this is just from Wikipedia, so take this as you will. Evernight is a series of 5 vampire-based romantic fantasy novels by the New York Times bestselling American author Claudia Gray. It tells the story of Bianca Olivier, a 16-year-old half-vampire girl born to 2 vampires who is forced to attend Evernight Academy, a private boarding school for vampires. Fuck me running. God.
Was she a half vampire if both her parents are vampires?
You know, I got a problem. I got to jump on right now, and I'm sorry. Why is it's a big problem if a few nerdy guys think that an adult comic book character or cartoon character looks hot if she's got some nice sized tits and all that kind of shit? But yet that's wrong. But yet these people like Claudia Gray and these other people are constantly sexualizing teenagers, underage teenagers, and overtly sexualizing characters who don't require it. What in the fuck is going on?
Well, I think it's what's the term I'm looking for? On that note, happy birthday, congratulations, all women out there. Today's like the International Women's Day, isn't it?
Yeah, but no, we're talking about Leox.
Yeah,
we're talking about a rock.
Topic.
He's much more important.
Topic, yeah, which is much more important.
He's brave and stunning.
Yeah, no, because that's what's the phrase? I'm not brave and stunning, but it's like but anyway, it's pretty awesome if they do it. No, like it's very, very okay if you have like 40, 50-year-old women that's sitting in
acceptable.
It's a double standard.
Yeah, like it's and screaming for Edward, the Twilight guy who's playing Batman right now. Yeah, that's perfectly okay. That's like, you go, girl. But if 40, 50-year-old guys had done exactly the same thing for Bella of Twilight, then someone would have called the cops.
Yeah, that's that's one of my lines. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, look up Twilight moms. Yeah,
they're a bigger portion of the fan base than you'd think.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, this is just the YA thing has run its course. Script, why do they keep coming back to the YA? Well, is there really that much money to be made left in that genre?
Well, on the publishing side of things, yeah, YA books sell quite a lot. But my understanding, and I don't have anything to confirm this, I wish I did, but my understanding from some of the talk I've heard is that it's mostly parents that buy the YA novels, not the kids.
And they all take place in high school. It's some sort of unfulfilled fantasy life they have.
Well, it's written by people who hated high school and wish it could be better, which I don't know why. It's like, if you hated high school and you're out, don't go back to it. Like,
I hated high school. I refused to go to reunions. I'm like, no, well, fuck no. I don't want to relive that era of my life. No, are you kidding me? But they keep going back to it.
The other excuse I always hear is Edward is 700 years old, but he's hitting on 16-year-olds.
Yeah, hey, I had that problem with Angel and Buffy, man. Like, we're just.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I'm 36. I look at a 20-year-old like it's still a child.
But you take a look. There's a common pattern to all this. Kamala Khan, high school. Twilight, high school. Her shit, high school. Bruce Wayne.
That's obvious because
they've never progressed past that.
Yeah, they're in a mental stasis.
Yeah, but also in their own heads, I think that this is the audience they want to reach. They want to reach people that are in high school thinking that they're going to stick with them then for the rest of their lives. I think there has to be something like that to it.
Well, get them while they're young is an axiom.
Yeah, exactly.
Who was it that said that? I think it was Robert Meyer Burnett. Kids don't want to read about other kids. They want to read about adults. They want to read about people who are older than them, who they aspire to be like.
Yes.
I didn't want to. When I was a kid, I wanted to be James Bond, or I wanted to be Paul McCartney. People who were older than me. That's like,
we all wanted to be James Bond or Han Solo or Indiana Jones or what have you. And
Obi-Wan Kenobi or the Shadow or Doc Savage or
Batman, Superman.
Yeah, it was. I've talked about this before, and I think in a video somewhere where I said, as a child, I didn't like movies about children. I was averse to them, except for the Goonies. I was averse to it because as a child, I did not meet aliens in my backyard. I did not fly spaceships. I did not go on adventures. And so I aspired to Indiana Jones and Luke Skywalker and Superman and Spider-Man. And so naturally, my even teenagers of driving age were considered adults to me when I was in grade school. So Marty McFly and Alex Rogan and all those characters, I don't want to watch kids. Yeah, Axel Foley. I don't
Well, I was just going to say, and that was the other thing, too, is like even the few rarities of films that I did like that were about kids, made for kids. That was the other problem I had at that time, Michael, and I agree, and I'm glad you brought that up, is because most movies that were made for kids were dumb. Even then, we knew they were dumb.
Right.
We hated being either pandered to or talked down to. Like a lot of those movies that when we saw Mac and Me, we had no illusions or delusions that it wasn't what it was. It was like, this thing's a piece of shit. It's a commercial, fucking hour-long commercial.
I think the Mighty Ducks is one of the few that kind of walked the line of that. Who's
the main character? Who's the main character in that? It's
that's why Richard Donner and them guys always did great jobs with things like Goonies, like Michael brought up, and Lost Boys and other movies that actually handled kids like kids, or Stand By Me from Stephen King and
but Rob Reiner.
But that's the thing. If you're talking Mighty Ducks or you're talking The Sandlot or even the Goonies at the beginning of the movie, those are scenarios where a kid can relate to it. Like I could relate to the idea that my parents' house was being taken away from them, or I could relate to losing a baseball and trying to get it back. Or I can't relate to kids like building a spaceship in their backyard out of a carnival ride and then going off into the galaxy. Like I didn't buy it. Like I was like, this is dumb.
Even the Bad News Bears, take something like the original Bad News Bears. That's an easily relatable thing for a kid.
Yes. You can't make it. I can't believe they remade that. Of course, it was tame in comparison to the original. That original now.
Andre, are you familiar with the Bad News Bears?
I know of it, never seen it.
Okay, I would. If
there's at least a half a dozen scenes that would never get past today's censor.
Oh yeah.
It's not about nudity or anything like that. It's just you got kids that are talking like adults, and they're talking about
drinking, and they're openly drinking beer at the end.
A lot of racist jokes and a lot
It sounds
sexist
amazing.
jokes. Tons of sexism and racism in it, that's for sure.
Yeah, sounds brilliant.
Yeah. Well, and the best part is Kelly Leak is the main kid. He's played by Earl Haley, Jackie Earl Haley, who
Yeah.
plays Rorschach.
Rorschach in Watchmen. Yeah, he's
And that's
always
his maximum
brilliant.
height, boys and girls.
Holy crap, Tom!
Yeah.
Tom, you just blew my mind.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No, now I'm gonna go run out.
He's
and get
the motorcycle
Bad News
kid,
Blu-ray.
yeah.
Holy
He goes-
crap!
I love that scene where he goes to the dance class and he goes hit to the girl, says, "I'm hitting 490. I'm play for the Bears." The right field.
Kelly Leak is awesome. We all loved him.
So he was a childhood actor, and then like when he was no longer a cute kid, then he couldn't get roles until he became a really creepy old man.
Oh, he was on character actor on TV shows. He's in MacGyver and.
But the whole thing is though that is a situation where it's relatable for kids. It doesn't talk down to kids and treats kids as intelligent human beings, not this garbage.
You know what's funny is two main people in Nightmare on Elm Street are in the movie because of friends who are prolific actors already. And believe it or not, Jackie Earl Haley went to the audition to play Glenn and brought along a buddy named Johnny Depp. And Mark Hamill was the one who informed Robert Englund, hey, you should try out for this part. They're looking for this guy to play Freddy Krueger. They were looking at older guys, but you'd be perfect.
And the rest is history, as they say.
The rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, indeed.
And you can thank Wes Craven's daughters for Johnny Depp because they looked at all the pictures and they said, no, pick Johnny. He's dreamy.
Yeah, I bet that Jackie must regret that. He made his friend a massive. Well,
actually, Jackie, and I take that back. Jackie might have been actually trying out for the other role. Now that I think about it, because he was more of the tough kid, so he might have been trying out for the Rod role. Now that I think about it,
The one who gets killed in the jail cell.
yeah. I'd have to double check the interview. It's been a couple of years since I saw it, but yeah, he brought that up. Like, yeah, Johnny came with me, and because Johnny was just a band, he just played in bands and shit. He wasn't going to be an actor. He wanted to be a rock star.
I bet you he's sort of rethinking all that right now.
He still made more money as an actor than he'd ever would as a rock star.
Absolutely, absolutely true.
Yeah.
And then he lost it all while we're on the subject, we might as well plug it. He lost a lot of that money on you know who. This lovely lady here.
Get your shirt today, folks.
That's right. Get your shirt. I was waiting for Andre to plug it.
No, keep the memory of what happened there ever fresh. And speaking of ever fresh, I actually kind of get the super chat up on screen for once, and this is Ron Harushin, who said, in conjunction with how it's okay, stunning and brave for 50-year-old women to scream for like teenagers on screen, but not for men. Sounds like rules for thee and not for me, if you ask me. Yeah, indeed it does. There's like some level of double standards going on.
Yeah.
And we have a couple of more super chats that I'll be going through as well.
A couple of big ones I saw.
Yeah, a couple of big ones. Slimer Snarf said for $100. Thank you so much. And he says, rock on, Midnight's Edge.
Rock on. And The Rock said he likes Rock On, but he prefers the song We Will Rock You.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. But thank you so much. That really helps keep the lights on. And the
Papa was
Sardos.
a Rolling Stone, so it doesn't matter anyway.
And the Sardos also sent $100. So wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much. Again, it's going to be light in the house this month too. So
well, that'll
so
actually help.
Anissa.
Andre actually had a bit of a issue to deal with. I don't know if you really want to talk about it much, but I'm sure that'll help out with your house.
Yeah, it's going to help with the water damage.
Yeah. You had a bit of a water explosion recently.
Yeah, kind of. So yeah, because in Norway we don't have too little water; we have too much of it, so much that it actually can blow up the washing machine. I kid you not. And the Sardos then said, for $100, thank you so much. Without the audience, what would the actors in Hollywood have? In the end, we must stand together or perish alone. The noxious entropy in popular culture is only there to divert our attention away from the planned decay in our culture. Please keep speaking the truth. Yes, indeed, we will. It's important to expose that entropy and highlight stuff that's good so that people can be informed and vote with their wallets. That's what we always say, isn't it?
Indeed. And I know that's something you talk about all the time, Michael, especially in the toy realm.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Speaking with your wallet.
Oh yeah, you have to. That's the only vote you have is denying, like, you know, when I wasn't happy with what Disney was doing, I said, well, I'm not, after they killed Luke Skywalker in Last Jedi, whatever they're doing going forward with Lucasfilm, I'm not going to put my money there. And I haven't. And that included Disney Plus. And same thing with the toy world. In the toy world, if they're not doing something that works for you, you can't just buy, like in the case of NECA, for example, don't buy toys that you know break just because they're making simulations of action figures of characters you like, because they're just going to keep doing it. They're not going to change or try and get better. And yes, that the dollar with corporations is your only vote. There is no appealing to customer service. There is no appealing to HR if you work within them. Those entities only serve to protect the corporation at the end of the day. They do not service the customer. Your wallet is the only thing that will serve you.
Yeah, and as somebody who has a very huge love-hate relationship with NECA, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Indeed. And then we have the Legion of Reason says, Leox sounds like he's an incel. But by choice, evidently. So, but yeah,
well,
not a huge
isn't that
difference.
what most incels are supposed to be? I mean, well, at least to them.
No, I think it'd be a voluntary celibate. So
exactly, because incel are the involuntarily celibate.
I know, but I was making a joke because that's what they call us all. So, like, never mind.
Yeah. Well,
it didn't roll.
You know what? I think that we have for a bunch of incels. I think we have a bunch of kids in between us, don't we?
You know where she probably got the idea from? She probably got the idea watching The Big Bang Theory, because very early in season 1, Penny says, what's Sheldon's deal? Does he like boys? Does he like girls? And they said Sheldon has no deal. We always thought he reproduced by eating a lot of Thai food, then splitting in half.
And again, that's what we always say, Rob, is that show went to hell when they started introducing all the girls. And it wasn't because they were introducing girls. It's because they were unbelievable outside of the one, which was pretty much Mayim Bialik's character, and then that kind of ruined Sheldon's character. So it was kind of the only good one they introduced was the worst one.
They turned it into Friends with nerds.
Yeah, basically.
I will say that I appreciate that they all moved on with their lives, though, in some fashion. So kudos for that. I actually don't mind too much what happened there. Life goes through stages, and so did Big Bang Theory, and I think that actually caught the stage from being at university in your late 20s to like going through the next stage. And that's kind of like where they were. That's that phase of their life covered. I think actually they did really well on
30s as teachers, and that was the thing that was kind of weird. They were in their early 30s as teachers, and
late 20s, early 30s,
across the hall.
This is of course a point. So, but still, like they went through. You saw like the changes that happens in life in their 30s.
Yep.
And I think they actually did really, really well in bringing that to the big screen. Not to the small screen. That's my opinion. So I don't mind those changes much. Did it ruin the characters? Well, it certainly changed them. But again,
it was unrealistic though, in some senses.
This is true. There was loads of unrealistic stuff there, absolutely. But overall, like the intent is something that I could appreciate.
Especially when it started out as it was these characters were very realistic, and then it just kind of where it got to the end, like Rob said, it was more friends with nerds, basically. Anything.
I would say it's, in my opinion, a million times better than Friends. But
I'm not going to argue that, but I'm not somebody who has a great love for either. So, and I don't hate the cast either or anything like that. It's just, just one of those shows.
Yeah, there's a great video about Big Bang Theory from a YouTube channel called Stubagful, Stubagful. Great commentator on this stuff, and he breaks down his whole love-hate relationship with Big Bang Theory. It's only like a 7, maybe 12-minute video, but it's hilarious. And he talks about Friends and the rhythmic patter of sitcoms and how it all is supposed to work. And if anybody's interested, go check out his channel. It's a hilarious video.
I have to check that out, because that was one of the things I actually did find charming about the show. It was one of the last ones to really use the canned laughs, and even though I think they did film it in front of studio audience, it's still canned laughs. But you know what I mean. But they had kind of killed the laugh track by that point. Not that I enjoyed it, but it's that like you were just saying, the rhythm and the style of sitcom television had changed when they removed that aspect.
Yep. It all became pop zoom ins and people looking right at the camera after a punch.
Like the Goldbergs and The Office and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And then we have Goose the Loose, who says, for £4.99, scene, Geode emerges from the mist. Bombs shower him with debris. The score fades into sad ethnic wailing. Leox yells, Geode, in slow motion. Hire me. Yeah, Goose the Loose, I think that you did a far better job creating drama than probably anyone associated with the High Republic can do, so they absolutely should. And Stephanie Yanni Sex Smugglers Cantina wonders, is Geode binary or non-binary? Yeah, that is the question. Yeah, elementary. Exactly, elementary. That's the answer to that.
Well, Tatooine is is part of a binary system.
It is.
That's right.
And Master Clockwork, who has learned a Norwegian word, says, kids are reading Demon Slayer, not this dritt. So, and I'll leave you all to guess what dritt means. It's nothing nice. So yeah, I don't know what kids ages 8 to 18 are reading, but I hope they're reading Demon Slayer and not this. So fingers crossed for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Big Red Bear says, maybe if they get the budgets they so desire, they can get Geode voiced by Dwayne Johnson. Get Geode to drop the rock bottom on people. #fail.
Yeah, but he'll only have one line, I am rock.
Yeah. And Bruce Campbell was in Congo, says, no need for profit. I have the Prophet KK.
Somebody actually made an account with that name. That's amazing.
Yeah, I told you to begin with that we can go through that one more time. Bruce Campbell was in Congo. Is just to make sure I get it right here, so we pay attention to it. It's the user formerly known as Darking616. It's now Bruce Campbell was in Congo.
All right, that's interesting. I like that.
Yes. So all kudos to him. Yeah, indeed. Indeed.
I don't know where were that movie all that much. I mean, I think the monkeys are cool, but.
And Christian Coralejo asks, if Treasure Planet and Atlantis the Lost Empire were box office successes, would we not have this situation? Both movies were actually really good, in my opinion, says Christian Coralejo. Michael, are you familiar with Treasure Planet and Atlantis the Lost Empire? Did you see them?
I did. I saw both of them. I ended up owning Atlantis because of its it's not a great film, but I ended up owning that one because of its adventure genre ties to Indiana Jones and Stargate and things like that. And also its vintage adventure ties because it's set in the early 20th century, which is also a thing for me, like King Solomon's Mines and films like that. But I can understand why it was a little tone deaf for children at the time that it came out. It was, following on the heels of Treasure Planet. I can't remember which of those came first, but
I think
Disney Treasure Planet came first. Disney was trying with, literal like pirates in space, literally with Treasure Planet, and then this Atlantis thing with, retro old 20th century adventure. And, for kids at that time, that was like throwing a Western at them. There was no Red Dead Redemption then to get kids interested in Westerns again through a video game. And, it's a shame because I do not think Atlantis, the Lost Empire is a total disaster as a film, but I understand objectively why it failed to stick the landing. Yeah. So.
And I think they're doing Treasure Planet as a live action movie, but
I remember which was it? There was a tie-in with McDonald's, I think, with Treasure Planet or something or whatever.
Probably both of them, because that would have been in that period. I believe that McDonald's had an exclusive deal with Disney.
But there was something about it. I mean, I think it was Treasure Planet where they said, if you notice, our hero doesn't use guns. He uses tools. I'm like, yeah, you come at me with a screwdriver. Ooh, I'm going to shiver in fear. I'm like, come on, kids think guns are cool. Regardless of what hangups you might have about them, they think that hero with a gun. Oh, cool. Oh, there's a reason why Han Solo was a badass. When he shot Greedo, everybody thought he was a badass when he shot Greedo under the table. It wasn't because he offered to fix his stereo. It was because he shot him.
Well, I think that's why Atlantis should have done better than it did, because you had characters in that who were truly sinister, and then other characters like the French explosives obsessed guy who was just literally carrying around all kinds of dangerous ordnance, and they were talking about it the whole film. But yeah, I get what you're saying. The Disney's lost its edge, and then they've applied that blunt butter knife approach to everything to all the franchises that they've acquired as well.
Well, they had a serious case of tunnel vision for decades because, again, they are a company that markets primarily to little girls. And when they wanted to expand that out to boys, and they're asking, well, what do boys like? You've got a whole bunch of people whose only experience is how to sell stuff to girls. So they have no idea what to do. So why do the research to sell to boys when you could just change the property that they acquired to fit the girls and then save yourself the headache? And clearly we're seeing a repercussion of that and how it doesn't work.
No, it's not working. I mean, it's the whole idea of, we keep falling back on old reflexes. We keep falling back on what we know. And I feel like that was heavily at play when they developed that first Star Wars movie, Force Awakens. It was like right out of the gate, they were like, what do we do? Quick, make it a central female character. And it's like,
we know how to write girls. We don't know how to write boys. So let's write girls.
Right. Yeah. It's like, maybe you guys should have not canceled immediately, because that's the other Disney reflex. Cancel all the stuff that the company was already doing when we acquired it, like Clone Wars and the expanded universe. Cancel all that. And it's like, you've literally just taken away everything the boys were already buying. And now you're going to bring out this other thing with your new creative brain trust, but all you guys know how to do is princess stuff. Mm-hmm. You should have kept the Ben Burts and the people in there who could guide you and shepherd you into this franchise. But no, you crippled and hobbled all them. You told Dave Filoni to go away for a while.
Well, that should have been a good thing, because I'm not a big fan of him.
I'm not a fan of Dave Filoni either. But what I'm saying is that his Clone Wars thing was actually popular with a certain group of people and kids and everything like that, and the toys were selling real well. And for them to come in and just killed that. It's like when they did the same thing with Marvel when they killed off Spectacular Spider-Man.
Greg Weisman was upset about that, but it's the name of the game. Yeah.
And Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes, and replace it with, Ultimate Spider-Man or whatever, which was terrible.
Ultimate Spider-Man, the other event. I think the first episode of the new Avengers cartoon under Disney had like a subplot about like grandma's cookies.
Yeah, see.
Like what does this have to do with Avengers, and why is like the Falcon obsessed about this? And this is like adult style animation too. It wasn't like what you got with some of the Thundercats stuff. Like, it was weird. Right. It was very weird, ass backwards, so to speak.
Yeah, and take a look at what's happening now, especially with WandaVision. They are setting up Wanda Maximoff to be the ultimate Disney princess. So it's bleeding over to that now.
Well, they've got the witch angle, so that kind of helps, and they know where to go there. But yeah, it's very. It's just I've never seen it like this before. I mean, that's the one thing I despise when I heard Disney was buying Marvel way back when, is like they don't know what the heck to do there. And luckily, Marvel has an infrastructure, but at the same time, it's like they canceled some of the stuff that was doing really well. So like Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes as a cartoon show was actually quite surprisingly good.
It was
And they got rid of that.
Yeah, and they got like some amazing voice cast. They even got Ray Stevenson to reprise his Punisher in there. How amazing is that? I mean, it was a great show.
Is that the one that even had like what's his face doing Jarvis and shit in it, if I remember right?
I can't remember.
It sounded a lot like
it had a Paul Bettany sound alike, and also had a Robert Downey Jr. sound alike.
Very good. Yeah, very good sound alikes, that's for sure. If that's what I'm thinking, if I remember right.
But that's the whole twisted thing about Disney, is they always think their corporate culture is we know better than everybody. We admit, though, we don't know the boys' market. Buy these companies, but once we buy them, we know better than the companies that had succeeded here. We're going to reinvent everything, and now look where we are.
Well, it's also like the production. It's also the production mentality. So when like the new studio head comes in, they're like, well, I clearly earned this job and I'm better than the person before, so everything that came underneath me has to go. And it's basically like a clean house mentality, which is big in corporate, and it's also detrimental to corporate, because instead of doing what they're technically appointed to do, which is save and rebuild and correct, they decide to, start fresh. Instead of a renovation, it's basically a demolition and a rebuild, and that never works.
No, especially when you're buying something that's already successful. They don't buy things that are failures. And so you're sitting there going, wait a second, this is counterintuitive. You're buying this because of how perennially successful it is. But your first attitude corporately across all industries is, once we've bought it, though, we're going to see it as problematic the moment we've written the check, and we're going to find a way to completely reinvent it to the detriment of what it was.
It's like buying a mall in a perfect location, then bulldozing it down for a bypass.
Yes. Yes. It's insane.
That was like the good thing with Marvel, and the key difference from Lucasfilm. And as you pointed out, Script, they already had their own infrastructure. They had a winning team that just had to continue what they were already doing. Whereas with Lucasfilm, there wasn't any of that. There was no winning team. They had to create one. And then the wrong team was created. Lucas himself shares blame for that, because he blames Kathleen, or he was the one who appointed Kathleen Kennedy in the first place. But
also, Lucas is a big experimentation guy. He's big on independence. He doesn't like corporate infrastructure, even though the fact that the concept of the corporate infrastructure made him, the money he had to do what he wanted to do. But he tried to keep it as kind of amateur in structure as he could, because that's what he liked. He liked the ability that you could create an experimental film and try something new and different, and you needed an environment that could support that. And a corporate infrastructure like something of Marvel or Disney or any of those things would say, no, we're not going to invest in that experiment because it's too risk financially and we don't want to lose all that money. But Lucas was kind of the opposite, and to a degree it kind of worked out for him, especially on Star Wars. But when he was experimenting with technology in ILM, no other studio would ever invest money in some of the ideas guys at ILM were pitching, because they're like, no, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, and that's what they talked about. There's this new documentary. I say new; it could be quite a few months old or even a year old, but I just saw it, about Chris Claremont at Marvel, and they talked about how when Revlon bought Marvel Comics, they corporatized it, and when they did that, suddenly it was no longer a creative free thought process with the right groups of people to just be free to come up with story ideas for the comic books. It became, well, we're chasing sales every month, and so we're going to homogenize all of this stuff, and what are we going to do? And it's like, well, we're going to suddenly force Magneto, in the case of X-Men, to just be a bad guy again, even though they'd written him and evolved his character, and we're going to reinvent that whole thing. And everybody was like, well, that's creatively bankrupt. That's not what we should be doing. Like, no, this is what we're going to do. And when they did that, suddenly you had the rock star artists coming in who were only around for 12 issues at a time. They upended everything that made these stories special. And now, if you read a comic book and a mainstream superhero book, the story is the same story every 12 months. They just recycle the same story every 12 to 18 months. It's insane.
Yeah, that's pretty lame. But yeah, that's the irony. They paid so much money for it, and then they micromanage it into the ground once they get it.
Yeah.
And the thing with Star Wars is that it's still not in the green. From what I've heard, they haven't. Disney as a whole has not profited from it, because you had like $3 billion movies, but they were barely profitable because almost as much money was spent on making them. So you haven't, and the merchandise sales have all but dried up. So there's not a whole lot to actually contribute towards paying back that 4 billion, let alone the more than the 4 billion, because you have to beat the opportunity cost, not just make back the initial outlay.
Hey, they got a lot of rocks to sell.
Yeah, maybe. And the beauty is that now when they're going to sell the toys of Geode, they can just go out in their backyard and find them from there. Like production cost is zero.
Plastic is cheaper.
Yeah, probably.
I'm kidding, they're just gonna go outside, sand them down, grab some more rocks, sand them down.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Well, I'm sure that they can find some people in certain camps in China to sand them down. There's plenty of free employment right there. But yeah. Let's get back to a couple of more super chats. I think that Chris Hill got a lot of no, actually, it was Mexican Iron Man who was the next one. Sorry about that. Mexican Iron Man says for $10, all hail the brilliance of the Midnight's Edge panel, and Retro is brilliant. They turned all Marvel and Star Wars into princess stories. Yeah, this is what we just covered. And Chris Hill said, KK is a treasure, all right. Cursed treasure. You better start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one. And Ray Young 74 says, character development for Geode. Geode will try to be more courageous as it wants to be a little bolder. Yeah, that's an arc right there.
Dun, 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 dun.
And Crazy Cat Guy sent a cute little kitty super sticker. And Stephanie Yanisek Smuggler's Cantina says, never get in your enemy's way when they are making a mistake. Quote from Napoleon Bonaparte. Yeah, it was him that said it. And Susan Dolan says for $5, if this is supposed to be Matthew McConaughey, then it's to get back at him like when Marvel made Star-Lord buy to get back at. And J-Bo Jr. says Geode is a representation of the rock that Kennedy has thrown at everything good that was Star Wars. They're telling us they're breaking it. I think they're showing that too. And Mecha J says for $5, I'm willing to bet Geode has more of a personality than Leox Jayasi. It'll be interesting to find out. Mags says for $5, I think we already saw Geode. He was auditioning for a bigger role by mowing down those stormtroopers in the Boba Fett episode of The Mandalorian. Yeah, that would be one of his many, many cameos. Lorne Connor says for $5, I'd love to know how they discovered Geode's navigational ability. Did somebody trip on him and said, hey, bud, you're going the wrong way? Yeah, that's a very, very good point right there. How do you discover anything with a rock, and how does that happen? It'll be interesting to see if the book is able to answer that across this incredible 448 pages.
It's more worried about telling you about the rock's sexuality.
Yeah, probably. CM Chunk says for $5 Canadian, Geode should be careful. Matt Mundane might come by and pick him/her up. And Christopher Tock says, Geode listing on eBay later from my garden. So yeah, everyone check that out and run and buy. Check out eBay for the latest in Geode toys. Dyra says, High Republic HR department had a complaint. Geode has a poster of the Grand Teton in his room. That's some geologist humor right there. And Chris Stewart said, well, he just sends a $5 Canadian super chat with no comment. So either there was no comment or it was removed by YouTube. In either event, thank you so much. And then Jared Wagner says for $10, in Retroblasting's 2017 DragonCon video about lightsabers, he insisted it was important they explain Mass having Vader's saber in the next film. Disney just keeps disappointing fans and lowering the bar. So yeah, Michael, did you ever get an explanation for that?
No, I don't think the world did either. I heard some, talk that there might be a comic book or something that was going to come out and fill that gap, but no, that was the major original trilogy device that they hung most of that plot around, and the stupid character even said this is a story for another time in the film, and then we never got that story. They just decided to drop that and ignore it, which is really what this Disney Star Wars thing has been about since 2015, dropping things and ignoring things. And it's really, really disappointing to see how the greatest IP in the history of space fantasy has been handed over to corporate ne'er-do-wells.
Well, I'm sure they intended to make a comic at one point. I mean, we got a comic explaining why C-3PO had a red arm. So there was that. That was like a really, really important thing that had to be answered. You want to know the real answer? You want to know the real answer why he had a red arm?
Okay.
Regardless of the bullcrap that they put in the comic book.
I think I know where this is going.
Yeah, that was to make him 25% different so that Bad Robot could capitalize on his toys. That's the exact same reason why they changed the deflector dish in the Millennium Falcon, because then it was different from the original design. Then it fell under Bad Robot's purview to claim proceeds on that particular piece of merchandise.
That's why they also invented BB-8 and DO and Babu Frick, all those guys.
And they painted every X-Wing black, and they painted every TIE Fighter black, too. Just different enough.
Yeah.
Well, they changed the wings on the X-Wing. Yeah.
Yeah, the X-Wing, they retconned it back to Ralph McQuarrie's prototype designs for it. So, yeah, what a mess.
Yeah, but anyway, that's the reason. It's all about like changing it enough that they can claim the merchandise money.
Well, I hope they sell a lot of rocks. I really do, because what they're doing right now is they're literally kicking characters out of part of their Star Wars products that actually sell action figures, and now they're going to be trying to put more action figures in their place that are not sellable. It's a brilliant scheme that they've got going on. I hope it really works out for them.
Yeah, because that's like the funny thing, that the audience has already voted with their wallets that we want the OG characters, whereas they evidently think that the OG characters are problematic. Now, Script Doctor, last time you spoke, you mentioned that the marketing departments and those responsible for third-party sales are very well aware of what Bad Robot means, that they come in, then any kind of merchandise sale is soon going to tank, because that is what has happened before. Do you think that there will be a fortune made in Geode merchandise sales to make up for the shortfall of everything else?
That would be miraculous. If there is a fortune, it's made ironically. Because right now, I mean, for the last 90 minutes, we've been talking about this character to a lesser degree, and it's the most interesting character we've been presented with because of its ridicule. Yeah. And it's also probably going to be the cheapest one to produce on mass. But like I can see, because the reason I know some of this stuff from the accounting is because when I do visit Hollywood and I do end up getting relationships there, not now because I'm currently in one, but I never would date talent. I would always just end up dating people that worked in accounting or in offices or things that were not industry related on the creative side of things, because they're more interesting people, and all you hear are like the numbers and how they try to market things and sell stuff, and it's good information to have. And I'm still friends with some of those people, and yeah, they always look at, you know, cost evaluation. So how expensive does it cost to make something? How much will it cost to market that? How much can we sell it for? And what do we estimate our actual profit margin will be as a result? And you get those types of numbers. But when it comes to Bad Robot in history, and I know this, it's like they just vanish away. And Bad Robot is notorious for being the best person at destroying a merchandising possibility than any other studio or production company out there. And I think that, especially with the High Republic, I would be very surprised if they did sell toys of these characters and they sold at all. But I don't even think there's an angle for them to even invest in merchandising the characters from these books, because nothing has sold on the Disney side of things with regards to toys in the same numbers as prior to the Disney acquisition. I mean, I'm well aware from the comic books and from the novels of the EU that they made action figures and toys and video games off those properties, and they sold extremely well. But now we're in the first generation of this under Disney, where that's not the case, and I don't even think they're going to invest into it because the popularity isn't there to justify the investment. And I think the bean counters in those studios would be able to argue that, especially to the higher ups that will have to end up approving the checks, regardless of what Kathleen Kennedy wants to do, or if all the numbers and spreadsheets say they're not going to make a dime off this on merchandise, it's not even going to be invested in.
I'm telling you, Script, they're already selling Geode action figures. You can get a bag of them at Home Depot, a 40-pound bag for $8. They're flying off the shelf. Script, come on, right there.
I haven't seen them with the Star Wars. Yeah, all they have to do is pay for the Star Wars label on them. It's like, repatch your driveway with Geode for $19.99.
Geode can help you with your drainage, problems. It can redecorate the house, start a garden.
No. Geode can help you navigate from the street to your garage.
Which is strange, because the only other type of car I've seen that has rocks employed are when they're up on rocks from their tires being stolen.
Brilliant stuff.
Oh, man.
So yeah, but on a more serious note, though, was there no one to stop this, or was it groupthink, as I suggested earlier? Like, how can something like this go through script?
I think it's also groupthink and a little bit of deadline panic, where, you know, the people are coming in and they're told from high up, okay, this is the month where you have to have this book ready for release, and you're dealing with a bunch of people that are creative vacuums. They just don't have imagination, and you can see that from their the board that they put up there on that paper. Like, they had no idea. Those aren't ideas. Those aren't even semblances of ideas. They're just basic identifiers of the franchise to the most minimal of degrees. And when you have a creative team that is lacking creativity and they have a deadline to reach, you then get a bunch of people that are in a panic, because again, you don't reach that deadline, you lose your job. And so you just make up whatever you can to hit the deadline. And the people upstairs who are also not creative don't know what creativity means, but they said, oh, you got 488 pages of this story about a rock and a asexual gay guy and you know, a co-pilot. Okay, that sounds Star Wars-y. Okay, good, great. You made your deadline. We go to print. We get it out there. We start selling it. Done. And then they're got a sigh of relief. But thankfully, because of social media and because of fans of the franchise, the people are going to be able to hold them accountable to it. It says, why am I spending money on this when clearly you didn't put in the effort worth the price tag?
Yeah, indeed. There's some more fun on screen right now for those who are watching. Ray Geode. It's...
I wouldn't put it past him eventually.
Yeah.
I'm surprised someone hasn't done like a little bit of a fan edit where they do the whole Rey, and she says the Rey Skywalker, but they do the dark side eyes, the glowing in behind her pupils, so you can, and then just put on like the Palpatine theme song, and then that would be a better cliffhanger for that thing, because it's like, yeah, she's posing as a Skywalker, but she's really the evil dark side of the Sith, so to speak.
I prefer the one where she also calls herself Rey Palpatine, where the victory is complete.
Yeah.
The Skywalker bloodline is completely wiped out. Their name has been usurped.
Will be lost
the
to time,
lightsaber
yeah.
stolen, and so that the Skywalker saga is even more about the ultimate defeat of the Skywalker bloodline, which really it's what it's about right now. Like the title Rise of Skywalker makes literally no sense. Should have been the Rise of Palpatine.
Well, we know from Kathleen Kennedy they didn't know why they picked that title.
If you think about it, Andre, she's raised. Pardon me. She's committed identity theft. She stole Luke's boyhood home. She stole his name. She stole his lightsaber. She stole his victory. She stole his sacrifice. She stole his X-wing. Everything she has, she stole. She stole the Jedi texts. Everything she has, she stole from Luke. Seriously, everything. She stole from Luke.
Yeah, as Vertical Horizon points out, the Palpatines won in the end. Yeah, they sure did. Let's get back to some more super chats because we have a few more to go through. The 70s rock fan says they will introduce a super villain enemy for Geode known as the Chisel. Oh, that's a comment of the day. Yeah, how about that naming convention? Because it's not only that you have like Geode the Rock, you have their vessel that's called the Vessel, and that makes me wonder which planet is Leox from. I'd be willing to wager he's from the planet simply called the Planet, and they're fighting as the bad guy or the villain or something.
No, they're
like
going to
that.
think it's going to be Earth. Like they're just going to say Earth.
Terra or whatever.
Yeah.
Or that's our name, yeah.
Or she might steal a thing from that Cheech and Chong bit. He's from the Pink Planet.
Yeah. It's
okay, just me, just me, no one else.
I have one other theory, and I wonder what Michael thinks of this in script, especially. You know how they tried to like copyright stupid shit all the time over at Disney? Like even they went through that whole Cinco de Mayo thing and all that crap, remember? Like what if it is them really just trying to really make these really like just so they can start copyrighting some really stupid shit.
Like googly eye rocks?
Yeah. Well, not so much that, but just like the names of certain things like Geode. You know, and
yeah, well, I feel like for that it'll be like where they have like, you know, on a lot of the Marvel Legends characters, it'll say Marvel's Thunderbird and Marvel's Rogue, and
yeah.
Actually,
I have to bring up a super chat that brings up that very point. Redwood Jones said for $10, "You guys are missing the point of Geode. It's a capitalist move, so they can sue for copyright infringement on all those that sell much more eye-catching rocks of the same name."
Can't do it. You can't do it because
it's a natural resource, technically.
Yeah, it's a natural resource. I mean,
I won't stop them from trying in some way, though.
Oh yeah, Nestle's trying to do that with water for years.
If something already has that name, you can't copyright that name. It's like how every beer company has a version of their beer called Ice. It's already named as something, Ice. So you can use that. You can use that term in any way you want.
I know the word itself can't be copyrighted, but there's certain things that you could probably, and I could just see Disney trying, like doing stupid shit.
I don't think so. I think they're gonna just throw up their hands and like, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think that this came from Disney. I think that this came from groupthink of extremely unskilled writers. I don't think that they.
I'm just getting to that point where it's almost like it's just like, yeah, you're getting so generic here.
I think that they would have gone with something a tad more specific to try to copyright than something as generic and age-old as rocks. Well,
no, that's exactly why they would.
But yeah, with copyright laws and who knows, and certainly with the Disney's sway. On other appearances, Thunderstorm says, Did Geode play the 3 rocks in Indiana Jones' Temple of Doom? Yeah, he probably showed up all over the place.
He played one of them, but his brothers played the other 2.
Those are the ones that got lost in the river.
Yeah. And Radio Man 1017 says, this is canon, so the Rebel Legion cosplay group must accept this. Imagine 100 people at Celebration dressed as Geode. This won't go over well. Oh, that'll be fun. And The Wall says, everyone knows the book is a half-ass attempt for a show/movie in Hollywood.
Yeah.
They're actually screaming for The Rock to play a leading role in it. Yeah, script. And Michael, I want to hear your thoughts on this. All of these High Republic books, like the only crossover that we don't even know, but that we have heard, is the Leslie Headland series, The Acolyte, that is going to tie in with the High Republic. How many of these books and characters that we now see coming are in reality movie and series pitches? Michael, your thoughts on that first.
I think they're looking for any opportunity at Disney, Lucasfilm, to elevate some of these properties into live action Disney Plus streaming series at the most vanilla, and hopefully I'm sure they aspire some of them to be movies themselves. At this moment though, we're dealing with you honor me, sir. We're dealing with I made that back during the Rise of Skywalker fallout, and I couldn't help myself. It just was too stark. But I really feel like they have all these characters that nobody's interested in. That was the problem that I talked about a few morning shows ago, or maybe it was even on an evening show. I can't remember, but we were talking about the expanded universes stuff with Tales of the Jedi and Knights of the Old Republic. It took Knights of the Old Republic as a video game to finally create characters like Darth Revan that people were invested in enough to want action figures from. But as far as all the other Old Republic, now we call it High Republic, but back then it was Old Republic, stories that they told, nothing was enticing enough to consumers to elevate to create a cartoon, or hell, even a motion comic, or far be it from them to actually create a live action movie or TV show from. The High Republic has a lot of precedent behind it in the EU that makes this not a viable era to talk about. I know there's a lot of people out there who love Tales of the Jedi and they thought those comic books were great. They did not suck. I'm not saying that they were bad stories. They're certainly better than what Disney's making, but they didn't have what it would take for it to become a movie. The closest they ever got was with Darth Revan and Knights of the Old Republic, which, arguably would be an amazing film. But Disney threw all that away, when they bought everything.
I mean, what about something like, listen, I know very little about the extended universe, but there are some good characters. Something like Exar Kun, who has a pretty good story. I mean, you don't even think that could be more viable than this?
Yeah, the Exar Kun stuff and everything. Yeah, all of the EU stuff that they made is superior to Disney. And so all that EU stuff should be looked at for adaptation directly into live action stuff, because nobody in the fan base really knows about it, because it was all written during the dark times. But my point in saying that is, at the time that it came out, I know that Lucas was dragging his feet just getting episode 1 ready. So you can't totally compare it 1-to-1. But everybody still wanted to have stories about Luke Skywalker after Return of the Jedi. They wanted stories about what happens to Luke, Han, and Leia after that. They were interested in those adventures. And even now, as we see from the end of Mandalorian Season 2, people are still invested in seeing Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Princess Leia after Return of the Jedi. This High Republic thing, which has already thrown away the best stuff that was ever developed for the Old Republic, like Exar Kun and Darth Revan and all that stuff, and is starting from scratch with an inferior creative team. And they actually are delusional to think they're going to be able to fly this when 25 years ago they had better stuff. And You know, it didn't go beyond the comics and a few books. It's part of the continued Disney's folly. They think that their shit doesn't stink, and that is some epic hubris right there. Epic hubris.
Sheer fucking hubris.
Yeah.
Well, and it goes beyond like just their storytelling and the things they're putting out. I mean, since a lot of this stuff has been going down, there's been people who've reached out, and there's a lot of people who say the common thing I keep hearing is Disney is not the same company it was a few years ago. I mean, even just a few years ago, let alone many years ago. And that's sad because it used to stand for something. It used to mean something. It used to mean quality. It was something like, on a Saturday night, the kids want to see a movie or whatever, and you can trust Disney. It was always going to be an entertaining film generally, and the kids and the adults would have equal amount of fun, especially when they got Pixar involved and stuff like that. And now they're just a pale shadow.
Right.
Yeah, indeed. Any hope for a return to something that we were used to on that, or is that the madness going to continue?
If they stop trying to do end runs around the creative process and getting actors fired off of popular parts of their business, then yeah, they might have a chance. I mean, Mandalorian, I don't watch it because I don't invest in Disney Plus. I got nothing against Mandalorian as a show. I've seen 2 episodes of it. They were just fine, but I just don't want to invest in Disney Plus. But I know it was successful with a lot of the fan base. But we've already heard all the reports of justifiably tens of thousands of Disney Plus subscribers canceling because Mandalorian has now been affected. This internal civil war that's been instigated by Kathleen Kennedy and her cronies is only going to keep making everything worse at Lucasfilm, because you have the people who are the harbingers of terrible ideas literally trying to euthanize the good ideas. It's staggering. I don't see how Lucasfilm can continue to operate this way for much longer.
Yeah. And I just want to point this out. Patrick Dwyer sent this to me. This is a Nunchuckosaurus.
He's got the eye covers and all that. Yeah.
I like it.
Nice, very nice. Yes, Gripped. How long can this continue? How long can this strife within Lucasfilm that right now is even having spillover into Marvel? Because the WandaVision finale, that kind of like was a letdown all of its own. But before it got to that, I'm pretty certain that there must have been a substantial loss in viewers, not because of anything in WandaVision, but because of the whole Gina Carano situation. How long can this thing be allowed to continue? And why is like this internal corporate warfare allowed to happen in the first place? Because you have the exact same thing going on over at Warner and AT&T right now, over at the Snyder Cut, with the Warner guys deliberately trying to undermine the Snyder Cut.
Well, I don't have a definitive answer. I wish I did, but I do have a theory, and I think it has to do with the fact that the studio system is so old right now that instead of during its earlier years and then it's kind of like its gold and silver age, where the heads basically said, I don't know everything, but I'm willing to take some risks. I'm willing to figure out what's going on. We know we have to make invest in something that is outside of the norm in order to see how to make money. But once you kind of got past the 80s, where they started doing the experiments and the actioneers and the dramas and the modern day film noirs and all that type of stuff, you then get a whole generation where you're being taught by people, or being through the actual experience itself, by people who have been in the industry for pretty much their entire lives, and they figure that they're absorbing that type of experience to themselves, and instead of having that curiosity, they have a form of I know exactly what's going on. I have an
they figured that they learned it through osmosis and just absorbed it.
Yeah, instead of having because the other part too is what drives any good industry is maintaining a little bit of curiosity and imagination. But when you have an environment that slowly dwindles that away, because it's like we go by history, we go by example, we go by the track record of sales and whatnot, where they try to make it a formulaic aspect of a creative empire, which they just don't work. You have to have a balance there. You have to have someone on the number side of things saying, you know what, that idea might be a little bit too risky. Can you kind of mitigate that a little bit? And then you have to have someone on the creative side saying, no, we got to experiment. We got to push ourselves, because that's how we, make the new technology, make the new stories, make the new adventures. And to Mike's point with regards to Lucasfilm, the only reason a lot of the EU stories were never put onto film or like in TV or film, it was limited technology. I mean, a lot of people are upset that George Lucas kind of dragged his feet on episode 1, but he spent 5 years working on that film. And the only reason he started working on that is because ILM pulled off the Jurassic Park, pretty much. The special effects were there. They were close enough to what George Lucas thought he could get away with telling that type of story. The problem is that how we approached the story is its own little thing. But he was getting closer and closer to experimenting with that, because if you remember, he did The Young Adventures of Indiana Jones, and that was just ability to tell longer stories in a more contained setting throughout all of Indiana Jones's life. And Bob Iger helped make that possible, because he and George Lucas negotiated to get that airing on ABC at the time. And those stories were basically the stepping stones. Like, he was willing to do an expanded universe on the Star Wars characters. The thing that he wasn't expecting was the blowback of the prequel trilogy to some of the hardcore fans, and also the fact that that the younger fans were a little bit too young to really get into the EU at that time. So he was caught between a rock and a hard place, so to speak, because his first foray into experimenting and expanding on the Star Wars brand was not just the Clone Wars cartoon, but he was also working on that underground Coruscant series as well, where he shot several episodes with on green screen with that new technology. And it was all basically, that was what was hampering him, not so much the content of the stories saying that they weren't making enough money. It was basically George Lucas saying, I need to have the filming technology that is going to be able to meet the requirements of those stories. But he was also getting older. He didn't have a successor. He also had a weird infrastructure at Lucasfilm. So a whole lot of things were just not in place for him to actually make, say, the Thrawn trilogy or stories of the Old Republic in a live action form or a cartoon form at that point. And that hindrance and that ability, that idea that he wasn't going to be around long enough to see that through, was one of the reasons why he sold to Disney, because again, he had that good relationship with Bob Iger from the Young Indiana Jones days. And on top of that, Disney had this long-standing reputation of trying to do well by kids and their products. But again, he could never have foreseen that they would, turn into a virtue signaling type of thing after 2012. But
yeah,
all those
probably not what he. That's not what he hired Kathleen Kennedy for.
No, Kathleen Kennedy was an out of left field type of hire. But again, like I've been trying to look into more of this on myself, just in my own free time. But it's always kind of strange where you have a guy who is maybe a yes man, but he's also a very good producer, which is Rick McCallum, decide to retire just before the official negotiations and sale of Disney Lucasfilm. And Lucasfilm to Disney. And it's just like, well, why would you get rid of that type of guy who he may have been a yes man to George, but when anyone tried to say they want to do something crazy within their Lucasfilm, he'd be the first one to shut it down, especially if it would be something like, making a rock character. He'd be like, what the heck am I going to do with a rock? Like that was kind of him. Like he didn't take that. He could take the crap from George Lucas because he was the one writing the checks, but anyone below him, he would never go with those ideas. He'd be like, he's still a businessman. He's still a film producer. He's still like, why would he do this? And it just always threw me for a loop that Disney buys Lucasfilm, and Rick McCallum, the guy who's been made Lucasfilm what it was for the 90s and early 2000s, is out. It just, I don't get that. I don't get why that happened. And he left the continent to start his own little small production company in Europe.
Yeah, I think that Star Wars would have been a far better place today if he had been appointed instead of Kathleen Kennedy.
He technically was. I mean, for years. I mean, regardless of what you think about the prequel trilogy, they're nowhere near as despised as the current sequel trilogy.
Yeah, no. If the sequel trilogy did anything, it was making the prequels better by comparison. So yeah, let's never forget that point. That's one thing that we should appreciate the sequels for. They made everything else better, and they kind of united the fans. Moving on from there, Radio Man said, this is canon. So, oh yeah, we said this one already, that cosplayers must now be dressed as Geode, so that should be good times looking forward to. And the Wall said that this is attempt at making a movie. And then we have the Blank podcast with Ian Slater, I think. Let's just check that real. Yeah, the Blank podcast with Ian Slater says, these people are for real with Geode. Was this a troll that backfired? Did they think this through? What drugs are they using?
Yeah, I've already seen people defending this on social media. They've already.
I'm sure. How?
I mean,
please tell me how.
They're saying that these High Republic stories are going in interesting directions, and I really want to give them a chance and see where they're going to take this. This could be really fascinating. And then I've had other people, tell me stop dogging on things that people are going to enjoy. You just need to be quiet and let people enjoy things. And I'm like, no one's going to enjoy a rock as a starship pilot. No one's going to enjoy that.
I saw another one that was like, oh, I'm going to judge things I haven't read yet and blah, blah, blah.
Well, no, you're not judging the thing that you haven't read. You're judging the marketing and the choices of that marketing. That's exactly. I mean, we do judge books by its cover. That's the first thing you see. That's what you advertise as.
To which I say to them, it's a fucking rock.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Yeah. Is there not a standard where we can all agree there's no effort here? This is truly dumb. Like, are we all so namby-pamby at this point that it's like, no, I really want to give that rock idea a chance. It's like, really, man? Like,
No, go ahead. Sorry, Michael.
No, I was just rambling.
How low is your bar if you want to give a rock a chance?
Well, no, I was just gonna say it's kind of the opposite of the whole like WandaVision thing. It's like they fucking promised a lot, and I've seen the articles and a bit of the pushback on that too. It's like you guys are the ones putting this out here, and it's kind of the same thing with this rock deal, like in Leox Giassi and everything else, and you don't expect it to be mocked. And what's sad is they're of course going to hide behind certain reasons on Leox, but what are they going to do with a rock? I mean, how can you hide behind a rock? Well, you can hide behind a rock.
Rocks are great defensive positions, actually.
Maybe that's the whole point.
I just remind me of another cameo of the rock character.
He's already been in Star Wars.
Like in the most like recent character or recent version of episode 4, when you have R2D2 hiding in there. And he's like rocked in such a way that he can't get out again. That was Geode right there.
I thought Geode was such a great actor. I really wanted to get him in the original trilogy, so I put him in front of R2D2 in episode 4. But after I had him in there, I'm like, I wonder how the droid would got in there. That's where I answered the question. It's a character. It just moves when nobody's looking.
Yeah, that's the stupidest concept ever, by the way.
Which they already did with the sloth in the Ralph Bakshi Mighty Mouse series. He only moves when people aren't looking. So, whatever.
Ralph Bakshi did lots of drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we have another super chat from Daniela Maya, who says for €5, this is my favorite stream. Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you.
I mostly lurk because I'm shy, but I want to thank you for keeping me company after I lost my dad a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, that's bad. Well, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, very sorry to hear about your father, and our sincerest condolences for that. But if we can do anything to make, not make it better, but to like help you move on a little bit and take your mind off things, then that is the greatest reward that we can get. So thank you for letting us know.
I really think we should be thanking Disney as well, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have the joy in our life that Geode brings. I don't think I've heard Rob laugh so much as I have in the last few days because of Geode.
Yeah, I mean, it was Oh boy, let me tell you. Yeah, I haven't laughed that hard in ages.
I
really
So
literally
what other
wa-
inert things? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
no, I was just saying, I watched that clip 4 times because of Rob's laugh. I watched it
He
4
lost
times.
it 4 times.
I'm just wondering what other inert objects within our universe are going to be turned into characters for the future of Star Wars. We have like a doctor that's just water in a cup.
You know, this reminds me of a bit that one time that Johnny Carson did for a new toy called Dickie the Stick.
That reminds me of the character that Steve Carell plays in Anchorman. He's just coming up with characters for Star Wars now.
And Dickie the Stick is made of 100% real wood.
I like desk. I like chair.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we should be grateful. This is true. We should be grateful for Star Wars to provide us with all this golden amount of content to like just laugh at and have fun with. Of course, I would have much preferred if they gave us more stuff like The Mandalorian that we could talk about because it was so good and we loved it. I would prefer that. But in lieu of that, I'll take something that we can laugh at. And also to get back to Daniela Maya, thank you for watching us and lurk all you want, but don't be shy. Hop in, comment. This is a great community, and we would love for you to participate more in it. But we're glad to have you watching.
Yes. Just don't do it while you're driving.
As we are anyone, whether you participate in the discussions and the chats and the Facebook groups and whatever you're not. But we're just glad to have you on board and watching us. So thanks to everyone out there. And we try to get through your super chats as much and as quick as possible. But there's some waiting time because there's quite a few to go through, which we are very, very grateful for, because it really does help keep the lights on and repair water damage and replace electronic equipment that's meant to handle water that blew out from the pressure.
Yeah, appliances.
I'm breaking TVs. Yeah. Andre's house is blowing up. Next thing you know, Rob's going to drop his on a witch.
Just remember,
I'm going to get a landslide.
There you go.
People, come on. I want the large onion rings this time. Come on, people.
But it's always a blast having Michael here because not only is he a special guest, but I don't get so nervous around Michael because he's like a buddy. So it's nicer to have him on in the mornings because then I'm not so like, I got to be all prim and proper, you know.
You know what, my friends are my friends, and like I've said, I love being friends with people that make me laugh and give me good memories. That's how I build relationships. Tom, you've made me laugh so many times over the years. There's nothing you could do short of setting my house on fire deliberately.
Shit, I gotta take that off my list. No, I want to get into your X-Men video. If you guys haven't seen this man put a shit ton of work into an X-Men video that's out right now. And
the Pride of
this
the
is the one that Andre's been waiting for. I sent it to you too. I don't know if you got a chance to see it yet, but
I will. I've looked through like the first few minutes. Looks amazing, and I can't wait to watch the whole thing. I just haven't had the time since it was published.
Oh, well, that's what I did too. I'm too distracted right now. I want to sit down with some popcorn and actually watch this.
Exactly. Like this is going to be enjoyed.
Yeah.
Oh no, so it's really good. I watched it yesterday. It was great.
It's like 40 minutes almost. So that's where I'm like, okay, I got to stop and
exactly. Like I saw the first 5-10 minutes of it. And it was amazing beginning, and I want to sit down, not with popcorn because I loathe popcorn, but with some pizza or taco or something, and just like enjoy it, because like that's YouTube at its finest.
Well, Mike Alonso at Clobbering Times on YouTube brought so much to that because he owned and ran a comic book store in the 80s, and he's been friends of mine for the last 11 years, and I brought him in on that as a guest interview because he was there. I was alive, but he was like of comic buying age, and he had been a lifelong comic collector. He brought so much to that interview, so much context to that subject that it really elevated that story of that one-off show. So I'm grateful to Clobbering Times for being part of that.
Yeah, we always see him in the chat. I don't know if he's here today, but I definitely am looking forward to to getting to actually watch that. I might do that today after the show, actually, if I got some time.
Well, that video reminded me that I got to find the X-Men emulator for that video game.
Oh yeah, the MAME emulator. Yeah.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I have a working MAME emulator that goes with a working ROM set for that, and it's like 600 kilobytes or something. So if you want, email me on retroblasting@gmail after this is over, and I'll be able to throw it your way if you just want to play.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, MAME emulation is a pain in the ass, but because there's so many different versions that have to like fit with just the right thing, and there's so many games that are only available in MAME and nowhere else.
Yep.
Often the best of them.
Yep.
And Master Clockwork introduces with a $5 super chat here our newest Star Wars character. What rolls downstairs alone and in pairs are over your neighbor's dog.
Log. Let's pay for a snack. It fits on your back. It's log, log, log. It's log, log. It's big, it's heavy, it's wood. It's log, log. It's better than that. It's good.
I read a horror script years ago called Log, about an anthropomorphic log. Really bad. It was really bad.
You know what's sad is I can't hear that song anymore without thinking of Eddie Murphy because I've seen that so many times.
I have literally never heard that song in my entire life.
Oh, it's a Slinky song.
Yeah, it's a play on the Slinky song. Andre, have you ever heard of a cartoon called Ren and Stimpy?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's a bit that comes from Ren and Stimpy.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. I know of it, but I never really saw it.
My nephew asked me what's Ren and Stimpy, and my brother told him, his dad told him, it's a cartoon that's out of control.
This I'm aware of.
The Slinky is just the toy that's the toy spring that just basically folds down the stairs.
Those. I had one of those. They're awesome.
Okay, yeah. So that was the Slinky song that I did.
Yeah. It was
okay. Yeah. I didn't know it had a name and a song, but
Eddie Murphy has a great bit with it because he talks about, when his dad's drunk, he's like, we didn't have fancy shit like you kids did when we were young, like food or clothes. My father brought home from work. My mother could cook the hell out of a Monopoly board. I ate so many goddamn Slinkies. Every time I hear that song, it makes me sick to my stomach.
Rolls downstairs, alone in the pairs. Makes a clickety sound.
Thing, marvelous. He can't even get through the song without laughing. That's great. Oh, Eddie. What happened, Eddie? Eddie, what happened? Not to switch gears here, because I want to hear you two, you and Andre and Michael talk about some Buck Rogers. But man, we did a review of Coming to America over the weekend, and the Rotten Tomatoes score has not been nice to it. The audience score dipped another few points. Not looking too good. It's one of the few times the critics in the audience has pretty much agree, though.
But in the worst possible way.
Yeah, that's damning right there.
Did you get a chance to see it, Michael?
I saw the trailer for it, and I was like, oh, wow, they've got all the old guys in the barber shop. How did they stay alive the whole 30-year stretch? And I'm like, that's not a good sign. Like, what is this? And then I haven't watched it yet, but Tim Witten on our crew watched it. And he said, it's just not good. And I'm like, ooh. And Tim's favorite Star Wars movie is Attack of the Clones. So when Tim is telling me that something is not good and it's, like this,
his barometer for bad is low.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh God. So yeah, I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen the first film, you've already seen it.
Yeah, it really did look like Home Alone 2. Like it looked like they just repeated all the beats from the first movie. 35 years later,
which is sad because I loved the cast. Seeing the old cast back, and even the new one was great. There was a decent idea here, but it needed another rewrite, or a good third of the movies left on the floor. And I think we came to the conclusion in our review the other day that it felt like this was meant to be like a Cobra Kai revival series. That Eddie Murphy's like, fuck that, I ain't doing no TV show, and they cut it down into a movie. Because, like, I noted that, like, there's nothing to really spoil, but the young character, the new young lead playing the son, we don't meet his love interest until 50 minutes into the movie.
It also felt like that nobody wanted to tell Eddie that, Ed, maybe we should give this another pass.
Yeah, that too. And then there's like these times where it's like butting heads with trying to do woke, but then trying to do woke jokes. And it just, yeah.
Yeah, woke. There's no such thing as woke jokes. It's just.
Well, they try to be kind of semi, tongue in cheek anti woke, but they just roll off real bad.
Yeah. The other thing too, it's just like I said, it feels like there's ideas of a good movie in here, but the direction they went with it just one or two. If you start asking one or two questions, the whole plot unravels.
Like talking, sorry, it's only a 55-minute movie. No, it's an almost 2-hour movie.
Yeah, it goes on way too long. It really does.
But it still feels like there's a bunch of the story missing.
Yeah,
and that's where I'm thinking this was like an idea that because they introduce all these new ideas, but they don't really get to go anywhere with them, and that's where I feel like this was something that was going to be like a new YouTube or a Netflix series or something, and it didn't go that way.
I mean, the like I said, the funeral scene goes on way too long. The idea of him having a son is not the worst idea, but all I kept saying was
executed is piss poorly.
All I kept saying was nobody thought to give this kid a DNA test. Really?
Yeah. Well, not to give too much of the movie away, because like the third act just falls completely apart. That's the worst part.
But realistically, though, I know it's a movie. We shouldn't be talking realistically. But realistically, though, if someone's the heir to a large fortune, I'm like, you better be. The first thing that I say is you better damn well make sure that this kid's your son.
Well, and not only that, here's what George Hilton said. And I watched Dolomite Is My Name again after this, just because I'm like, am I crazy or was that a worse movie than I thought? Because I loved the movie. No, I watched it. It's a great fucking movie. I do not understand how Craig Brewer, the guy who directed that, made this. It is not even remotely the same, because that guy also is involved in Hustle and Flow and a few other movies that were really good. And I'm just like, how does that guy get that to go from there to this? And it has nothing so much to do with the PG-13 aspect of the film, because they still are pretty racy for PG-13. But the problem is none of the jokes land, and it felt like Austin Powers 3, where it's a rehash and a greatest hits of everything. And just like Rob said, it's half-baked, needed another round of rewrites. And we came up with like 2 or 3 alternative stories that were much better ways of telling this story the other night when we did our review, I think.
Well, I mean, you got Scott Alexander and Larry Karazeski doing Dolomite Is My Name, and those guys are not writers with Coming to America.
And Dolomite was amazing.
Dolomite was fun. I liked that a lot.
But I don't know what happened here. But anyway, I want to hear Michael and Andre. What's going on with Buck Rogers? Something to do with George Clooney?
Yes, indeed. Because for anyone wondering, Buck Rogers. This is something that we were going to talk about the last time that Michael was on, but we didn't get around to it because we had so much else to talk about, and time just kind of like ran out on us. So, Michael, Buck Rogers, you are, of course, the authority on all things Buck Rogers here. So, to anyone who's not familiar, can't you just begin by giving an introduction? Who is Buck Rogers? Why do you know? And what previous incarnations have there been before we get into this most recent one?
Sure. Buck Rogers was a pulp character in the early part of the 20th century. He was a man out of time. He was a man who found himself flung into the far future. He was an astronaut who found himself, through a space anomaly in the future. And very quickly after the comic book became successful, or the comic strip, Hollywood came, knocking around, and they... Yes, Tom. Oh, sorry. I thought you
have a question.
Yeah.
Does it have anything to do with whales?
Not that I'm aware of.
Getting sent to the future. I just want
to make sure. It's not a Star Wars Rebels thing. Oh. But all right, got to regroup, Michael. Brain, regroup. Okay.
I am so sorry.
No. That was a good one. I was like, Ezra, damn you. Hollywood comes a knocking, and they hire Buster Crabbe to play Buck Rogers in a very popular movie serial in the 30s. And then I can't remember if his Flash Gordon came first or his Buck Rogers, but he played both in movie serials at that time. And then,
which is ironic because one was a rip-off of the others, even in the prints at the time. Isn't that the case?
I believe that's true. It's hard for me to remember which one was the rip-off of the other. Do you happen to know, Andre?
Buck Rogers was the original. Flash Gordon was the rip-off.
Buck Rogers was 39, I think.
Yeah.
Flash Gordon, I think, was 41.
Yeah, something like that. No, was it that late? Wasn't it earlier? Oh, we can find that out real quick.
Because I know the first one is Tomorrow's World from Buck Rogers. That's 39. I can't remember Flash Gordon though.
Yeah, and Buck Rogers really did capture pop culture when it launched itself onto the scene back then, because it even had a
Buck Rogers. He first appeared in 1928. The serial was in 1939, but the first appearance was in 1928.
Mm-hmm. And his merchandise was very prolific and popular, going all the way into the present day. If you've ever collected any Foo Fighters albums, you'll see the Buck Rogers disintegrator gun as one of the album covers, the tin toy that a lot of kids collected back in our grandfather's generation. But then in the wake of Star Wars in 1977, because as we know, George Lucas wanted to do Flash Gordon as an adaptation, and he couldn't get the rights, allegedly, so he decided to make his own Flash Gordon. In the wake of the success of Star Wars, all the companies came out of the woodwork saying, oh my gosh, space movies are now a thing. What do we have that's set in space? What can we make? And of course, Flash Gordon with Sam Jones came out, and then Star Trek went from phase 2 to motion picture. And then Buck Rogers followed shortly on the heels of Battlestar Galactica. Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, the TV show that started as a theatrical movie and became a TV show, or was always intended to be a TV show, with Gil Gerard and Aaron Gray. And then after that, Flash Gordon has had a number of reiterations. Flash Gordon had an animated series in the 90s and things like that with a small toy line. But Buck Rogers has kind of gone dark since then again. And so to hear this news that, Buck Rogers is now being considered for a revival, I find rather interesting, because we've been hearing those rumors about Flash Gordon as well. But nothing's materialized for either of those properties at this point.
Yeah, indeed. So the most recent rumor we heard then is that there is a new iteration of Buck Rogers coming, this time with George Clooney, of all people.
Mm-hmm.
What's your first reaction to that?
My first reaction to that would be that if he's planning on playing Buck Rogers, then they're really changing up the fundamentals of the story a little bit, or he's pulling a Tom Cruise where he just continually plays a 31-year-old guy no matter how old he gets. Buck Rogers was a young, 20-something guy, and I know that in the 70s television show they aged him up a little bit just based on Gil Gerard's age, but Buck Rogers was always a young, strapping dude. And an adventurous guy, a swashbuckling kind of guy. And so if George Clooney's playing Buck Rogers, we're in the territory of reworking the story to be like a Logan thing at this point. I'm not really sure what their intent is with that.
Yeah, because my thought is that the only way you can do that is that if then you have like an older Buck Rogers who looks back at his life. Mm-hmm. Because really, if you're going to have a 60-something Buck Rogers who suddenly is transformed into the future, you could do that, I guess, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as appealing as if he was a younger man who still had the rest of his life in the future. So yes. There was like some sense of loss of his life back home that he would not be able to resume, rather than George Clooney, who by this time is like, he's 59. I see someone say in the comments. Natasha says that he's 59. Okay, but fine. So he'll be like 60, like early 60s by the time this comes out. Then you have a 60-year-old man that has the best years of his life behind him. It's not going to be that big a loss. So being transformed into
Now,
the
do we
future.
know though if he's playing Buck Rogers though, or is he just producing and directing, or playing an older part? Like
There is an older
character?
role he could play that you
Like
probably
that-
like,
Yeah, I was going to say.
but I think he's primarily producing.
If he's producing, of course, that makes all the difference in the world.
I don't think I think George's. I don't think his ego will allow him to not be Buck
He
Rogers.
hasn't- I don't know though, Rob. He's been really kind of kicking back a little bit more, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's not just getting behind this. And who's because who's the older
Dr. Hewer.
Yeah,
Dr.
I
Hewer.
could see him playing like that kind of a part.
Yeah, if he takes on the role, kind of like a prestige role, like Marlon Brando did in Superman, or something like that, then I think that and even Max von Sydow did for Flash Gordon.
Yes.
Then I think that would be fine. And his star power getting this thing relaunched would be great. I am hoping that level of common sense is at play here. Nothing against George Clooney. I mean,
But
I like George Clooney.
There was that one he did,
that
space one he did where he was like the secondary character, and then there was a couple other movies recently he's been in.
He did the one with Sandra Bullock, and then Land of Tomorrow. Even some of the movie he did a comedy about like football in the 1920s where he's not the main character.
Yeah,
Yes.
the
Leatherheads.
Leatherhead, yeah.
It wasn't that bad. It was actually pretty good. It
Mhm.
wasn't too bad.
I would love to see Buck Rogers get a revival. And if George Clooney is on board and not playing Buck Rogers simply because of his age, like if this was 25 years ago or earlier, and we're talking about this in the 90s, and he was doing that, I would just give him the fair shot. But
I not only would give him the fair shot, I'd be all for it.
yeah. I have no qualms about George Clooney as an actor and a person. So
No, I like
No,
it.
and I mean you could even buy him as maybe 45.
Yeah.
You could lie, but
yeah.
I don't know about that, but
I said
Face,
kind of
maybe, but I've seen the rest of his body. Like he's
no,
still
and
got-
I don't really think this is what it's set up for, and I think he's just getting involved because otherwise a movie like this isn't going to get made. And speaking of clobbering times, there he is.
Hey, there he is.
There's our man, the original Buck Rogers story, Armageddon 24 1919. From Amazing Stories in 1928 is quite different from later versions. Interesting read, though.
There you go.
Mike at Clobbering Times knows his comics and knows his pulp, and I'm so glad he was in my little Rolodex to assist me on that other video. But yeah, Buck Rogers, man, I would love to see it brought back. It's been too long, and but maybe in some ways I'm excited about it because it hasn't been continually rebooted. Like it hasn't gone into like Spider-Man and Batman overload,
Overtime,
we've
had that one
without,
shot in the 70s.
Yeah, we've been without it for a while, so it's time to give it another spin.
Well, I know there's a lot of legal wrangling going on, but that might be something we'll get into a later date. But one thing I wanted to ask you guys, let's go off the assumption that Clooney is just producing or directing or just taking another role. Who do you guys see in this spot as Buck Rogers?
Who do I see as Buck Rogers? Anyone else feel free to jump in while I'm noodling on this.
As odd as it sounds, Chris Pine could do it.
You know what? I was literally thinking just that. He'd be a fantastic Buck Rogers. Both him and Chris Pratt. He also could do well, but Chris Pine would be even better. He'd be perfect for that.
I'm also going to go out there and say, because I've seen him do funny, and he does funny well, and I've seen him play superheroes, and he does those well. I think he's got the range and the chops for it, and I think he's actually got the real world personality for it. Another option would be Chris Evans. I think Chris Evans would be a good Buck Rogers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
He'd be fantastic too.
yeah.
A lot of Chris's that are good choices for.
Yeah. Anybody named Chris would be a great Buck Rogers. Let's just say
That's a mandatory requirement. Have first name Chris.
Steve Buscemi, I like that. Actually, I'd go a little off kilter, maybe with like Walton Goggins or somebody like that, even maybe, or even what's his face who played the bad guy in Iron Man 2.
Mickey.
Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell, that's what I meant. Yeah, not Mickey Rourke, but yeah,
I was like Mickey Rourke. Wow.
No, not Whiplash, but the other guy. Yeah, either Sam Rockwell or Walton Goggins too, if you kind of want a cocky, kind of Buck Rogers in a way.
Yeah.
Or even Ryan Reynolds.
Oh yeah. Ryan Reynolds would be good too. I was shocked the other day. I was like, oh my God, Ryan Reynolds is what now? 44.
Well, yeah, a lot of the
45?
actors we've actually said are all getting older. That's the
Yeah.
thing, and that's where I said even Clooney is, even at his age, could play a little bit younger and still get away with it. But you're looking at if you were going to start a franchise.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Sam Rockwell's only like 9 years younger than George Clooney. So.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of these guys we just mentioned aren't even that much younger, but yeah.
Well, that's why I was shocked the other day to find out is like Tom Holland has been cast in Uncharted, and I'm sitting there going, wait, isn't he a little like,
Young?
small framed to be Nathan Drake? And then I'm like, oh, but I guess he's one of the few that's age appropriate where they could use him for multiple films before he ages out, because I was trying to think of other actors at his level that are, not already 40.
Yeah, I was actually thinking just now, it just came to mind, but for another Buck Rogers, who's also a young guy who could actually get some years out of, would be Lucas Till. He's not bad. I mean, I saw him in like he was okay in the X-Men films he did. He did MacGyver. He was one of the few actors of his age that actually sounded like he knew what he was talking about in those first 2 seasons.
Right.
So he actually puts the effort in to make sure that he's not just saying the words to say the words like some people on a certain Discovery show. He actually does the effort to be like, okay, how do I say this so I sounded like properly? Which I'm like, if you're going to put an actor in a sci-fi show, like that's a thing that you kind of want to have with regards to the craft. Like he can do it. He's also got a little bit of charm and he knows how to hold himself. And he
does have the look. I will give him that.
He does have a good look that would work for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the question is, who would be, Aaron Gray's character, right?
Oh yeah.
Because that's the one that's really going to sell it for all the guys is too. Like she's got to be beautiful and incredibly confident and in control of her situations.
Yeah. I mean, if you get somebody who's a little bit more well-known right now, you could sell this pretty well. Scott Eastwood is another name I see in the chat here. What you're going to say, Michael? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I was like, I had an answer for the Wilma character, and then I immediately thought no, and then I thought this is the actress for Ardala, and I was like, so I flipped Cara Delevingne over to Ardala. Now I'm trying to think of a Wilma Deering. So
she wouldn't be bad. She was not a bad actress. She was just in a bad movie.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's important to give talent like that better roles where they can really thrive.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. Indeed. Well, it will be interesting to learn more about Buck Rogers as we progress. Script, have you heard any rumblings about Buck Rogers and where they are right now? Other than, I guess it's still very early days. But
it is in the early days. Lots of guys in my circle have been trying to pitch Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon shows for a few years now. Because that's the one thing. We know a lot of us know some sci-fi properties that are not really addressed, that are kind of like supposedly dead, but in Hollywood, nothing's dead. It's just dormant. It doesn't even matter if it's been destroyed by a previous company. It will always come back if someone can find a way to make it profitable. So for years, people have been pitching Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, even some other series like Captain Nemo type of stuff. And this was the first one where there's actually some traction on it. So it's really in the early stages. So I don't even know which writer managed to land the thing, or if it was one of the writers that did it, if it's not just George Clooney saying, you know what, I want to take my crack at it. I don't know yet. I'm hoping to find out soon, keeping my ear close to it, because I do like those old type of pulp sci-fi fantasy stories. I think there's a charm to them that we just don't have in our current entertainment right now that we desperately need.
Yeah. On that note, script, and I want to hear your thoughts on this as well, Michael. When we did our interview with Fredrik Malmberg, the owner of the entire Robert E. Howard estate and Conan Properties, he told us that when they announced that they were working with a new Conan series for Netflix, he was flooded by offers from very talented people, like high-profile people that wanted a crack at it. This wasn't the case so much when they tried to set up the movie that ended up getting made, the 2011 movie. Yeah, there were high-profile people that were interested, but it wasn't that he was completely flooded with great pitches and offers. That wasn't the case at all, but that was the case now. Has there been some kind of like awakening interest in the pulp era characters in the last few years?
I'm not sure, but I mean, the interest has always been there. Like, and I've been doing this since 2005, 2006. So I've always come across writers that like those type of old things. I think what's ended up happening is that a lot of those writers, myself included, we're kind of like stepping up, or we're kind of like built enough of a career that we're able to get those meetings, and we're actually to get that excitement and get that to that point where we can actually have the resume and pitch those types of ideas and actually be able to get through. Because there's a lot of, I would say the gap that you have here, you got about 7-8 years between the Momoa Conan movie and like the stuff they want to do now. That's a lot. That's another generation of writers, and probably a lot of them that were chomping at the bit to either do a Conan story or try and solve the problem of King Conan or what have you. And now that they actually have that reputation and a little bit of background in the industry, they're able to get into the door and actually do the pitch meeting. Like, even to myself at some point, there's some people I can actually pitch to for some of their IPs, and then there's some that I'm probably years away from getting to, or at least a major hit in my repertoire before I'm able to even get there. But I might have a great pitch for them that exactly they want. They just won't hear me because I'm just this. I'm not at that level with regards to like the social circles of Hollywood. And I think that's what happened in the case for Conan. Is some of those writers, they elevated in level in social circles, and now he was getting those floods of all these awesome things because these are these newer writers or these experienced writers that have finally got that big reputation behind them, and they want to do something that they have a passion for.
Yeah, I agree with what Script Doctor is saying. I think there's another element as well, which is when you're somebody who is a writer and you mine stories and you read a lot of different stories, and you become fascinated with things that are different. You become fascinated with things that aren't being looked at. I know this is very much the case for me, and I can only imagine that for writers who are being asked to write things on spec and things like that, for these studio internal projects, they're probably on some level going, well, I don't want to write another superhero movie. I don't want to write we need another Matrix, or we need another Star Wars, not even literally, but just make me something like the Matrix, or make me something like Star Wars, or we need our own, superhero franchise or whatever. And when they go back to these pulp stories, like when I'll go back and I'll read my, Superman archive collections, and I'll read my, Dick Tracy comic strips from Chester Gould that go all the way back to the 30s. You're reading, for what is, even though we're in the future and that stuff is 80 years old and 90 years old, for us, it's fresh material. It comes from a fresh perspective. It's not what's being made constantly right now, churned off the conveyor belt. It's something different and exciting, and it engages the creative mind. It engages the brain. And so I can see why writers would be enthusiastic to pitch those ideas and be desperate to do some of those ideas, because it's like, please, I would love to do this because this is different. It's interesting. It's not out there right now. I could make this sing. Getting out of that hamster wheel, of just the same stuff, the same problem over and over again. So I think
you're right. Yeah. Not only that, it's a lot cheaper to do it more authentically now. Like to make a period piece film or television series was incredibly expensive up until a few years ago. Now it can actually be considered quite manageable and affordable. And pulps are a great great venue for that. And on top of that, I think we're going to get more Sumerian tales. I think we're going to probably get some more Greek tales told in those in current forms, and not like a modern day take on it, but like, oh, we're going to try and make this look like, we're a Hercules story during his 10 trials, so to speak, like. And actually do it some justice with the special effects and the aesthetics and all that stuff, because it's now more affordable to do so. And it kind of breaks out of the mold, because that's the one thing that Marvel has done to their own benefit, at the same time detriment, is a level of oversaturation. I think even for this year, they're doing 4 Marvel films, whether they're in theaters or on Disney Plus throughout this year. That's a lot that's too much, in my opinion. I think there's nothing wrong with spreading out just a little bit so that it could be more of a showcase and less of, a quarterly thing. Because at what point, if they keep going and their success maintains, do we really want a fresh Marvel feature film like 2.5 hours every month?
I don't.
I don't either. I think you're gonna tap the well a lot sooner than you want to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I said this on the last morning show. Just the Disney produced Star Wars stuff alone, both already produced and potentially announced, you're talking almost 10,000 minutes of content. That's just Disney Star Wars, not original Lucasfilm Star Wars. So that's a full week of a human being's life. Yep. To consume. There is too much coming out of the fire hose. Things need time to build more anticipation, and that's why 3 years between Star Wars movies was so effective back in the day.
And it was a happenstance thing. Like if George could do it a little faster, he would. But he's like, yeah, we need the technology, we need the time, and we need to get that done. And it worked out to its benefit.
Yeah, and that's why I'm hearing a lot of people are saying, well, a lot of my friends are like, Endgame was the end of Marvel for me for a while. Like, maybe I'll go back to it one day, but I'm just burnt out on keeping up with the Marvel stuff now that they're churning out, television shows and stuff. Not that those products aren't necessarily good. I've heard good things about WandaVision, but a lot of us don't want to spend the rest of our lives on a couch. Like we want to try and do some things and, go get ice cream occasionally and stuff. I mean,
Yeah, like nothing's better than ice cream while you're on that couch. but yeah, I do see your point there, and even I think it's going to be really oversaturated because WandaVision. Yeah, there's some true excellence in WandaVision. It just doesn't matter by the time you get to the end. And then that's going to be followed up by Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and who knows how that's going to work out. Then you have Loki instantly afterwards. That's like 3 series back to back. In that, you have the Black Widow movie, and then you have the Eternals movie that we haven't got a trailer for. We only have like that one publicity shot that looks beyond god-awful. So yeah, who knows how any of that can work out?
I was watching.
But they absolutely run the risk of overexposure.
I was watching Gary and Doomcock last night. They pulled that image down of the Eternals.
Well, the weird concept, the poster art thing.
Yeah, it's been pulled down. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame them. The problem is that if that's reflective of the movie itself, then yeah, they can pull it down all they want, but it's only going to delay the inevitable. I don't know. Did you see that
point to inevitably delay it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any chance of the Eternals getting canceled? The release being. Oh, well,
they already filmed
shot. It's shot. It's filmed. I mean, yeah. I mean, they can't.
Disney hasn't got they don't have the opportunity to like just scrap $100 million plus production just like that. They spent the money. They can't defend to investors not releasing it. It's gonna be released, but they just need some better promotional material to try to hide the fact that the original picture was probably just as reflective of what we're going to get as anything else. That's my take on it, at least. Michael, did you see that picture from the Eternals?
I have not seen the picture from the Eternals yet. Let me look it up right now, and then I'll get.
Yeah, Tom, can you bring it up so our audience that weren't present for our WandaVision review last night, at least my last night, was only yesterday for some of you, so that the audience that weren't there for that can see what we're talking about.
Is it these alien people?
Yeah, it's on screen right now.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was looking it up myself.
Yeah.
Oh no, that is not the picture that I saw. I was seeing a comic book picture. Yeah, they all. I'm just gonna say this out loud. The Eternals. There's no aesthetic differentiation between them costume wise. They all look the same. These characters all look interchangeable. Like I feel like unless they all have very distinct personalities, I don't know. I guess maybe in my superheroes, I need a few of them to have helmets and maybe one or two of them to have some wings or something. Like, I know that sounds very pat, but
They need a rock.
No,
yeah,
I
one of them
think,
needs to be a rock.
yeah. No, I think you're being very diplomatic.
Yeah, well, but I do mean what I say. Like they all seem to be, dressed the same, and they all seem to have the same, facial expression, and they're all just kind of
Uniform.
stoic and uniform. Okay, it's not really pulling me in. I'm looking over there and I'm going, oh, I think that's Salma Hayek. I know her. Like, and that's it. It's like, okay. So
I hope to be pleasantly surprised, but to me, again, I know nothing of the story or anything. I just look at that picture, and to me, it just kind of like screams current year with everything that goes with it.
Screams CW to me.
It screams the Star Wars: The High Republic Marvel Edition.
I keep
A
saying
better version.
I keep saying it's Captain Planet in the Planeteers.
Yeah, it does look like Captain Planet, doesn't it? Yeah, it's.
In case there's kids watching, I had to take it down.
And the club points out that the Eternals are Jack Kirby's creation at mid-70s Marvel after he left DC. They're more similar to his Fourth World work. Yes, so I've heard. And I hope that the movie is going to be reflective of that, because one of the reasons why I so enjoyed Thor Ragnarok was of the immense Jack Kirby influence that was there in your face on screen. That was fantastic. If this can be more of that, and that's a huge, huge plus right there, because I love like that Jack Kirby aesthetic. But that picture right there didn't like convince me of that. So I hope to be pleasantly surprised by the final product. But
I never hope that anything's going to be bad. I always want things to be good. I know how much time and effort goes into any television production, but it always starts with the script. The script is always, where the first mistakes or the best instincts begin. And I don't want to. I would love to find out that this Eternals project ends up being awesome. I really would. But I look at that image and I go, this image has no energy. This image has nothing, saying this is going to be an amazing superhero adventure. Like this, it's like, come on, guys, this looks like minimum effort, and I want to see, if it's an expensive A-list production like anything Disney and Marvel do, well, I want maximum effort. And,
Yeah, and I would love for them to like to go and sell it as like being so influenced by Jack Kirby. It's going to be mind blowing. All of that. No. The selling point has been that this is going to be the first trans character in the MCU is going to be in here. That's the key selling point. That's been making the rounds.
I guess, like we just talked about earlier with the High Republic thing. Why are they hanging all of this alleged kids entertainment on the selling point being, guess how all of these characters are going to be oriented? I just don't see that as even part of the needed discussion. Like, I'm not advocating for censorship. What I'm saying is, in this genre, why does that need to be a thing that they put out there up front? We just read all of those character profiles from the 1977 Star Wars storybook.
I'd like to agree with people who say, well, it's indoctrination. I'm like, no, it's because it's a quote unquote kids property, and it's more easy to do it because people think kids are stupid, and because the higher ups don't pay attention because it's a kids property. Go ahead, do whatever you want. It's a kids property. Nobody cares. It's always been that way. It's always been that way. I mean, if you go back and now and you watch like something like Rocky and Bullwinkle, there's a reason why most of those jokes made it into that cartoon. It's because nobody was paying attention because it was a kid's property. Yeah,
Right.
they can do whatever they want. It's a kid's property. Never mind. And so, you had a lot of fourth wall breaking humor. They had a lot of like baseball jokes. Come, Natasha, we go to the A-bomb. What's A-bomb, Boris Starling? What some people call the show,
Right.
stuff like that. It's like I said, and that stuff flew under the radar because nobody was paying attention. Same thing with all those Warner Brothers Bugs Bunny cartoons. Nobody was paying attention to that stuff. And so they could get away with anything they wanted. And that's the same thing that's happening here. Nobody gives a shit about the Eternals. Yeah, do whatever you want. Just as long as you slap the Marvel label on, that's fine. Don't worry.
Yeah, there's a great comment here that just disappeared, but it was saying that sexuality is not a personality, and it reminds me of that Family Guy where Peter showed everybody or he was shown the film about millennials, and there was that narrator, and the narrator said, millennials are people who believe that loving Austin, Texas, and sriracha constitutes a personality, and I just read these character descriptions and I'm like, yeah, they're not telling us anything about the character. They're just telling us stuff about sexual orientation, which is not a story. Like
Remember,
that,
Remember that whole thing with Vita Ayala wrote for Marvel? Oh, there's nothing says millennial more than Zoomers than Instagram. I'm like, she's just giving a whole list of this person's on Instagram and this person does this. And it's like, no, that is not a personality. That is not a character. That is just, you're not giving me anything to latch onto. And they've confused with what a person superficially does with being an actual character.
No, I think that harkens back to this. When you look at this, a good 2/3 of this description is taken up by the character's sexuality. Or
you know what that is?
Non-evident sexuality, but anyway.
Yeah. You know what that is? That is the equivalent of putting your pronouns in your Twitter bio.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it looks good, but doesn't mean anything.
It means actually to those people that put it there, to those that want to indoctrinate, it means everything, because that's what they're all about. That's everything that they want to put in there.
Well, they're in for a rude awakening.
We can hope so.
Yeah,
but stuff like this isn't something that happened just because the higher ups looked the other way. Someone approved of this.
Well, and this is where I got to say, gay people and people in the LGBTQ community who find this as pandering, and as we put it, when it comes to like Star Trek Discovery, we say they're basically using all those characters as circus freaks. By going, here, look at our token black character, look at our token gay character, look at our token black lead female character, look at Timmy, all that kind of crap all the time.
Timmy!
Yeah, you're putting these people on display.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's until people that are, sick and tired of this shit actually stand up who are in these communities, nothing's going to change, because people like us really can't say anything. I mean, we can, but it's just going to fall on deaf ears.
But
we'll bigots and all that shit. Yeah,
we'll be dismissed outright and labeled as horrible things in the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So can't come from us. This is very, very true.
I've already gotten the death threats and transphobe shit. It's like,
Hey, I haven't gotten any threats. I'm like,
that's because nobody really finds you that like scary, Rob.
I'm that lovable goofball.
I just don't think they think you're a threat.
Oh yeah, and that makes me the biggest threat of all.
That's right.
Indeed.
Well, anyway, I got to jump here, guys. I got a couple things I got to tend to. So,
well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, hey, thank you. Obviously, Andre is for the people who are listening. If you have any problem with anything I say, just remember it's all Andre's fault. He's the one that hired me. So, all right, everybody in the chat, everybody be good, be excellent to each other. Everybody on the panel, well, we'll catch up with you next time. Till next time, everybody. See you later.
All right. Yeah, right. Take care. But the rest of you just stay here, because it's job's just a Rob that's leaving. And the rest of us, we're still here, and we have loads more super chats to go through. And I'm sure we have other things in the news to cover as well. But first, we're going to get in on some of those super chats. The most recent one, of course, was STR Red Wolf, who said Timmy and was wondering about that for $5. But we got the Timmy animation, didn't we?
That goes back to our Star Trek Discovery days.
Yeah, but it does.
I wish they were behind us.
That would be something. And then Clobberin Times sent us a $3 super sticker with a green thumbs up. So thanks for that. And on our Flash Gordon Buck Rogers discussion, Uber B-Man says for $2.99, when will we get Flash Gordon, the Axel Brown?
Hell yeah. There already is Flash Gordon 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's one of the most infamous porn spoofs.
Yeah, it actually came out before the Flash Gordon movie did in the 70s. I have it, and I saw it when I was a kid on accident, believe it or not.
You thought it was Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
And, horribly surprised.
Quick version is I set my VCR to record what I thought was Flash Gordon in the middle of the night. I'm like, oh, I ain't seen that in a while. I ain't got that on tape. I'll get that. Oh, boy, was I surprised by what I saw the next day.
You got the shakes.
There's something was shaking.
Well, you got a pretty decent replacement, although it might not have been.
Luckily, I think I was like, 12, 13. So it wasn't like a bad thing. It was just like, oh, what a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. As far as the surprises go, there are far worse ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then Automata says for $5, you know, the old TSR had an interesting Buck Rogers campaign setting, and SSI had 2 extremely excellent RPG games in that setting, Matrix Cubed. And John Apocalypse says for £2 only know Buck Rogers from the South Park parody. Did South Park do a parody of Buck Rogers?
Yes, they did a parody of the Buck Rogers in the 25th Century TV show on the 2-parter where Cartman is desperate to get a Nintendo Wii. And so
yeah, that's true.
And a lot of ancillary characters from across the Buck Rogers TV show made they used those as character designs in that 2-parter. And if you're a Buck Rogers fan, you'll pick them out. It's like, oh, that's the Trebor, and that's this random character, and oh, Erin Gray's wearing her pink jumpsuit in this scene, and yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah. As far as Buck Rogers parodies go, the definitive one though must surely be Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century.
Yeah,
from the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie.
Yes, absolutely. Which, of course, is more based on the more original ideas for Buck Rogers. Yeah, they sort of have a pure satire of it, whereas the South Park version was spoofing the 70s show.
Yeah. Clearly.
Yeah.
Dodgers.
I love
it's from the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie when all those are just repurposed animated cartoons from earlier.
No, actually, many of those were original ones, I think. Or maybe I'm wrong.
The interstitials were, but that's about it from my recollection. I could be wrong, but
it was the Merry Melodies, and
they were all like, what they would do with those is they take the old cartoons and then they do little like 2 or 3 minute little bits in between to kind of somehow cut them together. It was really weird. And one of the weirdest ones I remember was Daffy Duck's Quack Busters, because they brought it out when Ghostbusters 2 came out to capitalize on that. And it was just a bunch of the old monster cartoons from the old Looney Tunes days just cut in with, that's how they did it a lot of times. Yeah. I have to see that one again then, because otherwise I'm pretty sure that Duck Dodgers came out originally in
you're right. I checked here. It's it's 1953 Merry Melodies, which I really appreciate because they got the retro futurism right. Which of course isn't all that weird considering it's from 1953, and I just love some retrofuturism, and that is actually my biggest hope for any property like Buck Rogers. What I really want for it isn't science fiction as we see it today, but I would just love for them to go back to an image of the future as seen from the 1920s, 1930s, because to me that's like a far more intriguing look of what the future could be.
Yeah, it's definitely a purer vision of what Buck Rogers' time and place was for their vision of the future. Much in the same way as Sky Captain tried to capture that 1930s vision of the future with their aesthetics. Yeah.
I wish there was more like that, because that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And let's see if there were any more. I think that was all that was pertaining to Buck Rogers. So then we'll go back to the older super chats. Just give me 1 second here. Here we go. Stephanie Janisek Smuggler's Cantina says, for your information, Justine Ireland, who is another Star Trek High Republic author, she would be the one that basically said, like, if you don't like my politics, don't read my books, because they're chocked full of her politics. She, anyway, then, according to Stephanie Janisek, wrote her thesis on microaggressions in children's literature. She's an instructor at a local Philadelphia university. So, yay, good times. I'm sure they'll get excellent education at that university. William Sova says for $5, now, fellas, let's give Geode a chance, since his family has ties to European cinema through his great-grandfather and namesake, Don Geodia.
Don Geode.
And Matt G says, a Lucas-era Clone Wars episode had a dinosaur character. You see, they couldn't even get that right. Not even that was invented by them.
But my diversity in dinosaurs.
Do you think they confused the Trandoshans as dinosaurs?
Maybe.
And Thunderstorm says, politically corrected into a creative corner. Yeah, kind of seems like the way. And Thornton Wager says, Claudia has written some of the better new books. Referencing, of course, then the author of the book in which Geode appears. And yeah, she might have written some of the better books, but the competition really isn't that stiff.
No.
Tony Lopez says for $10, thank you so much. Stupid Rock. They should have brought in Pickle Rick.
Pickle Rick has more of a personality.
Trenchman says, Hail Darkside. And Blue Blood 71 says, I grew up in South America. I related to Luke and Han with no problem. I don't need to see people with my skin color on screen. Just make great characters. Yeah, that's all we ask for. And again, I don't need to see people with my skin color either. I just need to see great characters.
Well, and to be clear, it's not like we're saying don't put anybody who's black or Chinese or anything like that in the movies. We have no problem with that either. It's just make good characters. Yeah. Don't make that the main thing about them, or their sexuality the main thing about them. That's the two most boringest things you can make a character about.
Yeah, give us some effort.
Exactly. Because a great culture transcends, or great character transcends culture and everything else. Because on that point, all of these awesome characters that we're discussing, none of them speak my language. None of them are from my culture, and I love them anyway.
And some of them are aliens and robots, for fuck's sake.
Exactly. And Ron Harushin says for $5, sounds like rules for thee and not for me, if you ask me. Yeah, we brought that one up earlier. And Master Clockwork says for another $5, thank you so much. YA writers live vicariously through their characters. Certainly seems that way. And Matthew Sturgis says for $19.99, these writers clearly have no experience with sci-fi or fantasy, making a cool rock creature. That's cakewalk. These idiots have no respect for the sandbox they get to play in. No, this is so true. I wish it wasn't, but it absolutely is. Pescando says for $4.99. Genuinely curious, does anyone here write their own Star Wars fanfic? Do you share it with anyone? How do you feel it compares to Disney stuff? So, gentlemen, does anyone here write their own Star Wars fanfic?
I do.
No.
It's about it's called 50 Shades of Rey. No, I'm kidding. I don't write. Goddamn.
Dang, I thought that was a good idea. That pitch had me for a minute as a satire.
Well, you got to make her sexy somehow.
Which is a shame because
she's a blank board.
Daisy Ridley is actually a beautiful and charming actor. She just is given such horrible material.
When I was 14 years old, to answer this person's question, I did start writing a movie or book type. I was writing it in book form that took place, but right after the Battle of Yavin. I mean, it started the day after. It was like Karate Kid Part 2. It started right at the base, and but I didn't go very far with it. And then a few years later, I wrote a treatment for the Gary Kurtz Lucas version of Revenge of the Jedi, based on everything that had been revealed about that. And then at one point, I think my brother and I rewrote the prequel trilogy in longhand treatment form. But that's it. I don't do fan fiction of any kind. So,
yeah, like when I was 12, I wrote what I think the prequel trilogy would be, because it was just announced that year, and I've kind of left that alone. I've sort of taken my own ideas from that aren't very Star Wars specific and put them into my own work, which have done fairly well for my career there. So yeah. But no, a fanfic, I would always say try and make your own. And if you start off with your fan fiction, write 3 stories in total. Write your first fan fiction, do a sequel to that, and do a sequel to that, and then change the names to be outside of the IP or fan fictioning, and you're going to find yourself you have a kind of a new and original story and universe to play with, and that could probably be far more useful to you and to others than just rewriting someone else's story or IP.
Yeah, there you go. And as for me, I've never written any kind of fan fiction. I only wish that things were different and have my fantasy projects in my own mind, but I've never put anything to paper. So that's me. But feel free to continue discussion in the chat, because I think we'd love to see what all of you have to say about it. While I carry on with the next super chat. Leo Convoy's Reviews says for $4.99. Gentlemen, there's only one character anyone should aspire to be: Godzilla. So there you have it. Yeah. And Shum says, has anyone discussed getting a full-page ad in the Washington Journal or one of those trades to say all this?
No.
That's actually not a half bad idea.
It's not a half bad idea, though. Yeah.
That's not a half bad idea.
And I'm sure we can fund that real easily. And then I wanted to touch real quick on the chat before that again.
Go for it.
What was it? The main. What did they say exactly? So I want to make sure I'm answering it correctly.
What was that?
Just before the last one.
Before the last one.
The one you just
one?
The fan fiction one, I think.
Yeah. The fan fiction one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No, the Godzilla one. Never mind. It was when I was talking. Never mind. Okay. I can't remember which one was which. Never mind.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the last one was gentlemen. There's only one character anyone should aspire to be: Godzilla. That's what I thought.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what if you want to be King Kong? Because I'm more King Kong though.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Then
I'm a big gorilla, and I'm a sucker for women.
Yeah. Then those of you who think that there's only one character to inspire to, and that's Godzilla, can fight those of you who think King Kong is that character, while the rest of us watch. So yeah, that's a perfect solution for everyone.
Right.
And then Larry says, life is a rock, but the radio rolled me. Meet radio.
That's a good tune. I wonder if that's ever been in a movie. I like that song.
Coralejo says, I had an idea for an animated series set in college as opposed to high school. Think kids would have an interest in that as it's the start of adulthood. Yeah, there you go. Big Daddy MRI says for $4.99, once the avalanche begins, it's too late for the Geode to vote. With apologies to Babylon's 5's Ambassador Kosh. And the DCV Titan says, script, be clear. It's Thundercats Roar. Thundercats 2011 was damned good, and a shame it was axed after one season.
Oh, right. I remember that one. That was actually not bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Blue Satoshi says for $20, thank you so much. Geode once had a cameo on par with Luke in SpongeBob episode Pizza Delivery. SpongeBob cried tears of joy upon meeting him. It's not a boulder, it's a rock, a rock. The pioneers used to ride these babies for miles. Oh yeah, leave it to SpongeBob. Actually, Geo does look a little bit like SpongeBob, doesn't he?
He looks more like the tombstone for Star Wars.
Yes, you're right. It's a tombstone for Star Wars. That's exactly right. Mr. Tickletrunk says for 10 Canadian dollars, thank you. Do you remember way back when we all had to worry about corporations was called immoral greed? I miss those days. Yeah, those were the days, weren't they? And Roger Haynes says for 2 Canadian dollars, may the quartz be with you. Good, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And Commander Pessip says, good, have quick reactions in geological sense. Yeah, we operate not in geological time here. And The Wall says, know what they're going to do with this rock geode thing, right? The whole purpose is an attempt to confuse parents when their kids ask for a geode.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Matt G says, Geode will be in Star Wars Episode 10, Glass Jedis. Yeah.
Is the writer's boyfriend a geologist? I want to find out what he does.
Probably
Well, he's certainly not a writer, I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
He's probably some hipster fuck.
Yeah, I
don't even have a TV. So I don't know what a Star Wars is, so why don't you just make it a rock?
Dressed and looks like a lumberjack, lives nowhere near a forest.
Exactly.
Well, the writer is actually a lawyer, so it stands to reason that she might find someone educated herself. So, well, I don't think that he's going to be a geologist, because then he would have thought of like a more exciting rock. We'd know more about what type of rock. Like any random douchebag can come up with a rock. And then Troy Pacelli says for $5, there really is a listing on eBay. Star Wars custom figure, Geode the High Republic, 3.75-inch, rare. That's hysterical. It is indeed. And I bet there's going to be much more of those to come. Eric Guns says for 5 Swiss francs, Geode was created when Kathleen Kennedy asked for concrete proposals for new rock-solid characters. Babading. Yeah, that's a good one. And Uffe K says for 50 Danish kroner, they tried to claim the May the 4th hashtag, remember? Did they? Did they try to claim May 4th? Yeah, well, there you go.
There was the May the 4th be with you. I think there was some sort of...
Yeah, that's another one I couldn't remember, yeah. But, that's what I was trying to say. If Disney can try, they will. And now we've got their newest figure to go along with Geode. They're introducing the Force.
Is this a joke?
No, this is a joke.
Yeah,
Okay, thank God.
It's an old joke, but It's
But
still
here's like
works.
the thing. But again, this is like so stupid that you never know.
Well, the lines of
That's-
satire and reality have been blurred quite effectively over the last decade.
Yeah, they have. Like you can never really tell if like someone is joking or if someone is real.
That's
You
not
have,
how
like,
the
a couple
force works.
Yeah.
That's not how the force is with you.
Yeah. And your Muslim uncle says for $4.99, with a push for gender neutrality, why did KK start with the force is female? Will her feminist slant be considered not woke in the near future? Yeah, just give it a few years, and I'm sure those shirts are going to be problematic. And Thunderstorm says, Geode attempt cashed in on Groot. Why not the plant? Yeah, I agree. I think that Geode is an attempt to cash in on both Groot and Baby Yoda. And honestly, I think that some people actually think that it could be the next Baby Yoda. Do you think that they're that delusional that they could think something like that, Michael?
Oh, isn't it true that Kathleen Kennedy wanted Baby Yoda gone from The Mandalorian as well? Because
Yeah,
yeah,
it
so
is.
she's her BB-8 didn't work out, her Porgs didn't work out, her Babu Fritz didn't work out, and Baby Yoda did, and now she's leaning on this rock, which is just like, my God. I mean, it's really kind of sad when you think about it. I feel like the end of her career is eventually going to become some kind of Hallmark movie or something. Like,
That's what she should be making right now.
I know, right?
Yeah. I will say for the Porgs, though, that I do lament that they're not real, because I really want to eat one.
They look delicious.
They do. They look amazingly delicious. I know.
I bet you there's not much bone to them either. It's like all meat.
I still don't understand why Chewie threw the one away. It's like, you already cooked it, dude.
Might as well commit. Yeah.
You might as well commit now. Like, it's not like you're gonna make it come back.
Yeah, and like that one that looks at you and tries to guilt you. Well, there's your dessert.
Exactly. You know it's sweet.
Here's the thing: if George Lucas would have made that movie, or at least that scene, I should say, it would have been him looking at the porg giving him the look, and then Chewie going, "Rah!" and then turning around and eating the porg. He would have
or scaring the porgs away. Yeah.
Yeah, or scaring the porgs away, like you just said. Yeah, one or the other. He wouldn't fucking give a shit. I mean, the Ewoks were going to eat them all, for Christ's sakes, if it wasn't for 3PO.
Yeah.
And they just got
there you
lucky
go.
that he was scared enough of Luke to like actually listen to him, because he's like, it's against my programming to
Impersonate a deity. Yeah.
impersonate a deity. So like, he's kind of going against his programming at that point.
Yeah, like they literally put Han over a fire after he'd just been thawed out from the carbonite.
Yeah.
Moving on. Efeud Ronan says, the story group looked at the success of Guardians of the Galaxy and said, what can we do to rip off Groot but make it original? A rock, of course. Yeah, many appears to be thinking along those lines. And thanks for the super chat.
And as
And
Plus Max
Bobo-
brings up here, it says Chewie did eat humans in Solo, but that's okay. Humans are okay. It's just animals. See, that's the other thing is, you can't offend the animal lovers. You can't offend the LGBTQ community. You can't offend anybody who's not white or male. That's the rules. Other than that, yeah.
Anything goes. Where were we? Yeah, then we had Bobo577 who sent us £4.99 super chat with no comment. So thanks for that in any event. Really appreciate it. And Willie Woodward sends us two $5 super chats back to back. First one says, Script's theory, I think, is on the right track, but missing a few elements like ballooning budgets, multiple platforms, etc. Is there any way back in terms for nerd properties coming back to making good IPs, merchandising, and particularly toys? So I think what he's asking is there any way that these things can be good again, so we'll want to buy the toys for them?
Well, it all comes down to the question of, do toys still sell in the numbers they did 20 years ago?
Well, that's a good question for Michael. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. It's what it boils down to for me is I've always struggled with that narrative coming from the toy industry, because they love to say that to excuse the decade upon decade of continuing to pander to the adult collectors who used to be the kids. But I always hear, and I've heard this from actual toy designers at Hasbro and former toy designers at Hasbro and Mattel, that the stuff that still makes the most money for Hasbro and Mattel are the child targeted products. And so if action figures have been pulled away from being targeted to kids, as they have, then what it simply means is that kids aren't being attracted to those toys in their lineup because Hasbro and Mattel aren't prioritizing them for them or advertising them to them in that way. Meanwhile, all of their other stuff that's targeted towards kids is apparently doing very well. So I sit back and say, well, it sounds like they need to actually start, alerting kids to the fact that, hey, we know you like these toys here, and we know you like your video games. There are these other toys that are based on some of your favorite characters. But they've actually got to start putting an effort into doing that. And right now they're afraid that if they bring out a kid-centric action figure, that the adult collectors are going to get mad. And it's like, well, guess what? Adult toy collecting started because adults wanted to collect the kids' toys from when they were kids. So maybe we need to shift some of that back and let Hot Toys and all those companies, stay focused on adult collectibles. That's kind of where my head is on that equation.
And I guess in the same kind of stroke as that, like even as a kid, I would rather have something that was, looked cooler and looked more real. Because that was one thing I think we had that conversation at one time. When I was a kid, I would rather have had my dolls look more like the ones that were in the movies than the ones we got, because they were generally just like a sort of kind of version of them.
Right.
It always seemed like. And Star Wars being probably one of the more closer, because even though they were simplified, they were still, George Lucas was really kind of made sure that they all looked, at least close enough to the one in the movie. But again, like I go out now to and this is just my local Walmart, so I can't speak to everybody's, but every time I go to the Star Wars section, like the classic lines are gone. Like anything that's like those, the diversity of the Force lines and shit like that they're aimed more towards kids, those are always sitting there collecting dust. But like the most recent Black Series figures, like they only had like hanging out there last time was like a Lando, one of the Stormtroopers, and a bunch of Jar Jars. Otherwise, they were all cleaned out for like those bigger Black Series figures.
Yeah, the whole thing with the distribution with Hasbro has been a major issue, and Mattel has had some of those problems, but Hasbro has never properly sat down with its retailers and said, okay, this is the way it needs to go for product to flow properly. They always end up log jamming the first few waves of a new thing into stores, and then all the retailer sees are the SKUs have filled the pegs, so we don't need to order anymore. They don't look at them as assortments. They look at them as just widgets. And it's like, well, everybody's already bought He-Man and Skeletor. So unless you're making room for the new waves to come in, you're just going to have that 50 He-Man and Skeletor sitting there for the next 6 months, or those 7 Jar Jar Binks Black Series figures. That's what's going to hang out there, literally just hang out there. That's why 2 years after Force Awakens, we were still seeing all of those stupid characters that J.J. Abrams deleted from the movie, just still hanging on pegs. The toy companies can blame the retailers all they want for that, and on some level the retailers are to blame, but because it's been 15 years of these problems and Hasbro still hasn't corrected it with the retailers, it's now on them.
That's also a fair point. One thing that I kind of notice, and because I'm in the age where a lot of my peers have children between the ages of like 5 and 10, they don't have the space to house a lot of toys. Even one of my youngest friends who has like a 7-year-old, he was spoiled for the first 2 years, but they ended up having to sell a lot of those toys because, number one, the kid didn't play with them, didn't want to, and they were all really cool toys, these things I would have loved as a kid. And number two, they lived in a small little bungalow home. They couldn't store all this stuff if they wanted to, and it just kind of felt strange. Like, do parents have the disposable income to really do that thing with the kids like they did with some of us, like giving us a lot of action figures, toys, or dolls, or what have you? Or do they just want to invest the one lump sum into something like a tablet or iPad where they can just play all these free apps and games to occupy the kid and let them peruse online to a bunch of stuff without having to worry about closets full of toys or stepping on Legos and stuff on the living room floor? There's a lot of extra variables they have to start considering now with different technologies and different means of entertainment.
Well, not just that. I mean, looking at the toys as a whole, I mean, they've only been releasing a lot of classic figures, so that's why they're selling out so many. And, you know, whether you want to argue Jar Jar has gotten more popular over the years, considering his figure's still sitting there, it means one of two things, I should say. Sorry, I can't talk. Either that means Jar Jar still isn't popular, or what's happening to Star Wars, we can kind of compare to Star Trek even more so now. And Andre, I think, knows what I'm getting at, and that'll get us even more into toy discussion here, because frankly, it's almost alarming that Paramount would even consider working anywhere near Bad Robot anymore after basically they started the downfall of the Star Trek toy franchise, which is an extremely lucrative franchise for CBS and Paramount for the years.
Yeah.
They used to rake in what, 30, 40, $50 million a year just in toy sales and shit alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they totally buried that with the whole Kelvin universe product assortment. And I don't know, maybe it's a Stockholm syndrome thing. Like maybe the people at CBS Paramount are just like, well, Bad Robot's already got all their fingers in everything that we're doing with Star Trek, so it's just too hard to untangle, and let's just let them keep doing what they're doing.
Well,
I mean, yeah,
I was just gonna say, I don't really think that that's gonna happen. I think all it is a pitch, and they only have to listen to it because, you know,
right.
It's Jar Jar Abrams, and I don't think it's going to get greenlit, at least not unless it's some kind of TV level movie like we were discussing in our video.
I live in hope then. I mean, I really do. I want them to kick Bad Robot to the curb so fast. I really do.
They technically have to a point. I mean, Bad Robot does have technically an exclusive deal with Warner Brothers right now. So the stuff that's with Paramount is just lingering just due to the contract. So I think, yeah, their relationship with Paramount and Viacom CBS or whatever the heck the conglomerate has become nowadays, I'm getting kind of confused. It's via
CBS-acom.
It's via CBS-acom, yeah. It's running out. The clock's running out, and I think this should be the last year of it. I think.
Via CBS and Nickelodeon, I forgot. Paramount Plus.
Indeed.
And Miramax. Don't forget Miramax Dimension.
Yeah. And we have to move on because we have a few more super chats to go through. Michael Miller sends for 14 South African runs. Sings Kennedy, our childhood. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Lord Camina 2 says Planck is the best pilot in the galaxy. Yeah, goes right along with the Rock. Culture Casino sent us $5 super sticker, so thanks for that.
Thank you.
And Not a Banned Account says for $4.99. Why does Hollywood hate Western culture and values so much? If the West died like they want, do they really think communism, etc., would be kind to them? It's a little bit on the side of what we cover, but all I will say is follow the money trail, and the people behind it will be just fine.
Yeah, follow the money. Yeah, the money is what's driving their shameless courting of China film markets and everything like that, despite all of the socio-political problems that creates for human rights and everything like that. But they go da over there, and then over here, like you said, they're mucking it all up. Well,
I think it almost has comes to a point with all this virtue signaling and everything. I think they're trying to I don't know if this is exactly what you were getting at, Michael, but they're almost trying to like distract us. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, look what we're doing over here, while they're pandering on the other side to this communist government that's against every last thing that the woke agenda is about. I sometimes wonder if that's partially why Hollywood's so involved in it, is they're trying to distract us from that and present this idea of, oh, no, we're all these wonderful things that the media says is all great because, the media gets behind the left ideals. And, we even had several people come out and say that that's what they're trying to do is appeal to those demographics. And it's like, okay, clearly that's where the agenda probably comes from, even though we've talked about how it's much deeper than that. And it's, a created like trend, and it's not a real thing. It's a bit nefarious. And again, to get into the deeper weeds of it all, the best place I send you to is Comics Division on Thursday nights, where they get into a lot of that stuff, and I join them from time to time there. But that's only so far as I can go, because when they get really political, I even back out of those conversations.
Yeah.
So.
We don't want to get too far into it because we don't want to get struck down. But I will say this one more time. Follow the money.
Yep.
And there's a reason for it. It's not a coincidence. And with that, KitKat sent us a £5 super sticker, while Crazy Cat Guy sent us another super sticker of a cute little kitty. Master Clockwork says, what rolls downstairs alone or in pairs? And you got this one already. You got this one already.
Yeah, Rob's saying it.
Yeah. And Nico-san says for $4.99, newest Disney challenge, how to cease and desist everyone who sells geodes and rocks because of copyright infringement.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And Ty Remmers says, High Republic will reveal Geode is the rock Rey had to lift in The Last Jedi.
Or maybe it's the one that she chopped in half and crushed that house in The Last Jedi.
Yeah,
he was in The Empire Strikes Back as well, though. We forget that. Luke lifted him.
Luke lifted his kids. Yeah, because it's.
He's been all over the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. I made sure he was there.
Yeah, exactly.
He was the another Yoda spoke of.
I always said Jar Jar was the key to all this. I lied. It's Geode.
Yeah. And Robert Marard.
And you're actually, I just got to say, you're actually pronouncing it wrong. It's Geode. He's Latino.
That's how he identifies. And then Robert Marard sent us a $5 Canadian super chat with no comment, or the comment was removed by YouTube. In either event, thank you so much for the donation. And Jerry RN says for $3.99, Geode BFF is the no arms mechanic Rise of Skywalker. And
the slug thing, yeah.
Yeah, and Almanuel0311 says, just let your soul glow. Just let it shine through.
Just let your soul glow.
Yeah, that sounded like a song.
It's from Coming to America.
All right.
Soul glow.
Yeah, I haven't seen the original for years, and I haven't seen the sequel period, and probably is going to continue that way. And
the original is classic, but
the original is fantastic. And Automata says for $5, the old TSR had an interesting Buck Rogers campaign setting, and SSI had 2 extremely excellent RPG games in that setting, Matrix Cubed. And we got that one, so then we are mostly caught up. Then Francesc Blandino says for €5, in Stanislav Lem's book Fiasco from 1986, the protagonist tried to make contact with the stationary rock-like beings of Quinta. Yeah, you have like more rock creatures in fiction, but I bet that those were more interesting. And Clubberin Times sent us the super sticker, and also sent us a super sticker. And Hillis Mallory says, Geode would be better as a Discworld troll. Yeah, now that would rule. In Discworld, he would fit right in. Mm-hmm. Which reminds me, we have to watch and review the Watch as well. That's a Discworld thing. Michael, you into Discworld at all?
Yeah, I absolutely am. I read it when I was living in the UK in the early 90s. I read a lot of Terry Pratchett. And I even played the CD-ROM point-and-click adventure game the year it came out with Eric Idle playing Rincewind the Wizard in the Discworld games. I love those books. I love it's brilliant, smart fantasy satire. And then I found that my interest in Terry Pratchett dovetailed with my interest in Tomb Raider because Terry Pratchett's daughter, Rihanna, was the writer of the first 2 relaunched Tomb Raider games, Tomb Raider and Rise of the Tomb Raider. And I had some correspondence with her after I played those games and loved them so much. So yeah, I'm a big Pratchett fan.
Awesome, cool. Have you seen The Watch yet?
I have not seen The Watch yet, and the only thing that's kept me from doing it is when I saw the trailer, I was like, I'm gonna need a moment, because it just didn't look. It looked like they were taking a lot of liberties with the way that Discworld is supposed to look and feel, and I'm going, dang it! Like you finally get some Discworld stuff. I know they had an adaptation on British television, if I recall, several years ago, but I didn't have the chance to see that because I wasn't in the market. I was back in the States. But, when they said The Watch, who were some of the funniest guys in the books, I was like, come on. And then it was like, oh, it looks all trendy and weird. And so I need to give it a fair shake, but I haven't done it yet.
Yeah. Both Neil Gaiman and Rihanna Pratchett trashed it, so there's that.
Well,
but I was thinking because I really want to see it and review it on the channel because we did like this Discworld video, and I'd love to have you with us for that since you know it much better than any of us do.
Oh, he's noticed Tom and noticed Script Doctor. He's played a brutal game. Andre has on the chessboard. He said, "Hey." He said, hey, if you watch this, we'll review it together. Curses! Now I have to watch it. So, all right, deal. I will watch it. And whenever you're ready to do that review, I'll be ready to do it with you.
Fantastic. Sounds awesome. So, yeah Tom and Rob, we have our next bunch of suffering ready for us.
Well played, Andre. Well played.
This is how we roll, like a rolling stone. So, and Master Clockwork says they recently retconned the original Green Lantern as gay, and I was livid. This isn't how you do representation. Being LGBT isn't a GD trope. And KBiz says for $20, thank you so much, I'm not the only one who has been bullied by this company. Quote by Gina Carano. Now we'll see if someone else is willing to come forward with time.
Yeah. We got a little bit of breaking news on the screen real quick here.
Do we?
Brought to my attention. The Big Day, A Big Dream at this year says, Kevin Dawson, I will be doing a screenwriting workshop and doing a Zoom reading of the 2 scenes from my Jessica Cruz script. So they are doing Green Lantern Jessica Cruz, evidently.
Yeah, this is what we heard from Mikey Sutton, that they couldn't do Hal Jordan because the higher ups were afraid that Hal Jordan was a joke now because of the movie from 10 years ago.
Oddly enough, being produced by I think the same person that is doing the Jessica Cruz show.
Go figure. Go figure. How interesting is that? So it was the audience's fault. And then Ram Bam 3000 asks for $5. Andre and Company, how about a Dan Dare movie based on the 50s British Eagle comic? As for me, I'd be all for it. Guys, are you familiar with Dan Dare? And
I am.
Would you like to see it?
No, I'm not.
I'm familiar with Dan Dare. I'd love to see anything fresh like that, especially when it's esoteric and maybe a little forgotten by a lot of people. That means it's going to be new to the audience, and I want to see them take risks on things that are new. Whether they're truly new or whether they're so old they'll be new to everybody living now. I'm tired of retreading the same old thing all over and over again. I'd give anything to see a Dan Dare TV show or movie. Yeah,
there was one I think like 20 years ago, maybe a cartoon show. I can't remember, but I'm familiar with the name and I know about the old series. But why not explore it? I mean, I mean, well, I can think of a good reason why not to explore it now, because we do have some people in the positions of power that are hiring untalented hacks to produce and write some of these things. But no, I think there's an opportunity to explore a little bit more of the horizons of our older sci-fi pulp and fantasy stories, and hopefully let it inspire something new for future generations.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. And Justin Proper says for $5, Andre, good to see you live. Oh, thank you. Tom unironically called me Gene Siskel the other night. He also called me Script Doctor, but that's besides the point. Oh, awesome. Yeah, in Norway we have a saying, Kjært barn har mange navn. That translates roughly to a beloved child has many names.
That's very fitting in so many
and Mikey Gussler says for $5, March 17th, head over to Uche stream with Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers, Ryan Cannell, and Lethal Lightning to donate to AFSP with special guest Zack Snyder. Awesome. We'll be sure to check that out.
Yes, I knew about it, but I was sworn to secrecy, and I okay, now we can talk about it. Cool.
Yeah, so then it's public then. Fantastic. Yeah, we've been looking forward to that. We were aware of it, so if it's now public, we look forward to start pushing it. Taker610 says for $2, Leox must be a Bob Seger fan.
Like a rock, you were making love to me. Like a rock.
Oh, man.
On the vessel no one could see.
And Hyper Guyver says for $20, thank you so much. Growing up, I read stories like Conan, Lord of the Rings, the Elric Saga, the Black Company, and the Wheel of Time. So in other words, Hyper Guyver has some excellent educational background where reading is concerned. And then he continues, writers today lack vision, imagination, prose, and a general willingness to explore the old ways of writing heroes. Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. Of course, you have some good ones. There are some good ones out there.
I would say there's more good ones out there than there are bad. It's just the good ones don't have the backing behind them to have that important. Because that's the thing.
Yes.
Like when you paint with broad brushes that bad writers are everywhere, they do dominate to a point, because if they're getting the properties that are being funded and advertised to the most, you're thinking, yeah, all Hollywood sucks. But the thing is, if all Hollywood sucked that badly, it wouldn't be on a slow decline right now as it is. It would be a pile driver into the ground like immediately. You don't last that long when the entire industry is terrible. Like if a prominent part of it is a prominent wing of a company is bad, it can have repercussions on the rest of the company, but it takes a while before that wing actually does cripple the company. If it were truly bad across the board, the whole thing would be done for immediately.
Indeed. So yeah, there are good writers out there. The problem is that the ones that really get to be profiled are not necessarily the ones that deserve it. But even from the least likely of places, you have some good ones. Like I will be happy to point out Jim Sub, who on Wednesday has like the entry point in Marvel's Conan stories coming out, like issue 19. He actually does really well, in my honest opinion. I'm not paid for saying that. I just think he does well. Simple as that. So even from Marvel, you still have some good stuff. And then we have Rush Patel, who says, Tom mentioned he mentioned he would be Kong, but I think Tom would be a better Grodd.
A gorilla Grodd. Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of more like Kong.
And says,
not as smart as Grodd.
Says that so many adults collect Grogu. Oh yes, that is so true. And K-Bis says for another $20, thank you so much. A good message needs repeating. Quote from Gina Carano. I'm not the only one who has been bullied by this company. And then Adam Wofford says for $10, breaking news. Geode was kicked out of the Jedi Order because he was being racist against the other rock students, because he was made out of granite and the other students were made out of sandstone. So, yeah, good going there. Redwood Jones says for another $10, thank you so much. Don't really believe Disney will copyright sue everyone over Geode. More of lulz that might unfortunately come true. Came for the Star Wars laughs and stayed for the trolling on the stones laughing puns. Yeah, we like to be diverse here in every way. So come for one thing and stay for everything else. That's how we like it. And Peter Smigelski says for yet another $10. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that, especially with the water damage. I think you guys are missing the point of Geode. It's the writers of High Republic's own story. In Star Wars, literally anything can be anything. And in our world, anyone can be a writer. Yeah, this is so true, even those that really shouldn't be. And then finally, Thunderstorm says, Geode as a plant that heals using the Force. An idea every bit as good as anything to come out of the High Republic. And then we only have two more and we're caught up. Hillis Mallory says, I want a Green Lantern Guy Gardner movie, darn it. Yeah, good luck with that. I'd love for you to have one. And Emerald Fire 2250 says, for $5 Canadian, will we ever get an adaptation of more adult comics like Requiem, Vampire Knight? I am not familiar with that one, but I would love for that to happen. Michael, are you familiar with Requiem, Vampire Knight?
I am not familiar with that. Melinda, who is my better half, she is more of the vampire and horror enthusiast in the household, and she might be familiar with it if I ask her, but I am not familiar with that. When I hear vampires, I've watched a number of vampire films and things like that, but typically when I hear that vampires or things like that are involved, I don't make it a priority to watch them. They'll just kind of happen when they do.
Yeah, there you go. Script, you familiar with it?
I am not, no. But again, if there's someone with money that likes the pitch, they'll find a way to make it. That's how the industry works.
Yeah, so let's hope that can find a way to happen. And then we have Trenchman who says, "Bring me back Thick Batfleck, not puny Pattinson."
Yeah, no kidding. Speaking of thick, though, not to change gears on you, Trenchman, did anybody else here see the pictures of Natalie Portman on the set of Thor: Love and Thunder? She got jacked up a bit. That or it's makeup suit.
I think it's a makeup suit.
Oh, I heard that. Michael's just like, oh.
Yeah, that's.
I think that would have been Rob's reaction, only just a little bit more flamboyant.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
He's the one who's always going off about her not being big enough to be lifting up Mjolnir.
No, she's 5 feet.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Trenchman. I appreciate that. And then we got one from Hyper Guyver 2 for $10.
Yeah. Who also says that I'm also beyond livid that Amazon dropped their Elric adaptation as to not be compared to the plagiarized Witcher series. And bad reboot will finally kill Lord of the Rings. Yeah, that's the thing that I don't like about The Witcher. Because of that, we didn't get Elric.
I swear JJ is trying to interject himself into everything, though. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's just another example of the rip-off usurping the original in every way, shape, and form, which isn't a great thing, but that has happened more times than would be nice. And Morgan King sent a $5 Canadian dollar donation, so thanks so much for that. We really appreciate it. And with that, we are caught up. So
that is right.
with
And
that,
for us finishing before a 4-hour mark, I'm giving us a maximum effort puppy today.
I do love a good beagle.
Yes, and this is an
Yes.
adorable little puppy here.
Indeed.
And we want to thank you guys out there for listening. You guys have been great, sending in all the super chats and just hanging in there with us, sharing out the stream, hitting that like button. Everything you do makes a difference. It shows YouTube that you are here, and it shows them that you care about us and that we matter, and that suppressing us is not going to do anything but make you guys even more angry and want to get the word out more. So that's the best ways you can help us. Even if you can't support us financially, it doesn't cost you a thing to hit that like button. Even if you hit the dislike button, you didn't like what we said, still lets YouTube know that you're here.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So if you disagree, then hit dislike and let us know why in the comments. That's we appreciate that too.
Absolutely, yeah. Just keep it civil. Otherwise, I'll come after you. Rob won't. He won't be nice. So, and we got a last minute one from Ann Karras coming in here. Our good friend from Australia sends in $5. Word on the street is that Disney is introducing a new slate of Star Wars characters. I'll let myself out. From Martin.
I
got it.
I got it.
So I was chuckling.
Good
You
one.
haven't heard yet, Ann Karras?
Slate. Good one.
It's late. Yes, indeed. The jokes never end. It's like they're doing this almost on purpose to give us stuff to talk about at this point.
There's a lot of Flintstone names you could pour it into to this new character.
Then we got another last minute one here from Cesario GPN says, someone give Leox his medicine. He's talking to Riley. He's doing more than that. We're just lucky he's asexual. So that Rock is in trouble.
Otherwise, he'd be chiseling away at Geode on a nightly basis. Yeah.
Exactly.
I got 5 pieces of candy. I got a chocolate bar. I got a quarter. I got a rock.
I just love that.
Yeah, and Cesparius also says no comment for $2. So thank you so much for that.
In this case, I don't know if you
appreciate the support. And also, I would like to say thank you to Michael for joining us today. Where can people find you, and what should they check out?
Thank you for having me on the show again. I love being on Midnight's Edge. Anybody out there can find me at my own YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/retroblasting. We do pop culture analysis of everything in the Gen X experience, including things that are tied to that generation's experience in modern merch and modern television and movies. So
you guys do great work over there. And besides that, you're always a fun guest here. We love having you. And, it's always fun hanging out with you in other places too, like the High Council and stuff like that. But if you guys are looking for toy coverage from not just toy coverage, because you do other aspects and avenues of it as well. So I don't want to really pigeonhole it there, but you are, mostly toy related. But I mean, I've said it before, but for those who've not heard it yet, there's times where I have gone to Michael's videos for reference. Like he's that good and that deeply, you analyze and you research and you do everything to make sure it's all there. And that way I know I'm getting good information and I can usually back it up. And I especially remember like when we were doing Star Trek stuff, I brought that to Andre's attention. I'm like, look, this is what happened with the Star Trek toys, and I love how you broke it down. You did way before Netflix did theirs.
Right.
So.
Yeah. That people were pointing out to me when Netflix did their episode. They're like, I think they watched your stuff and then just patterned their episode after your video. And I'm like, well, but embarrassing confession to that, Tom. I have actually forgotten some of the information that I've put in videos that I did years ago. And while trying to sort through other stuff physically in the studio, I have gone to look up answers to those questions and my video came up. And then I'd have to watch my video.
You're not alone.
Answers to things I already forgot. So
I've had to do that myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
For our own videos. I mean,
yep.
So, don't feel bad at all. Don't feel bad at all.
Good.
It's a normal thing, I think.
Yeah.
But thank you.
So many of our videos begin with research, and research is like rewatching our old stuff, and I'm like, holy crap, I had no idea.
I forgot about that. That connects with this even more than I thought. And Stifka, please, says, "Cuz Michael is the man." Yes, he is. And he has a DeLorean. I'm very jealous of that.
One day we'll take a ride, Tom.
In time?
in time.
Do you have the new flux capacitor that I saw online?
I have a flux capacitor replica here in the studio that occasionally I can put just in the car for car shows and stuff.
He actually has it in the intro of some of the videos when he has the when I take you to the past.
Oh yeah, which we now use that intro on our live streams every Saturday, so you can see it on the beginning of the live stream.
Yeah, I love that shit.
Yeah.
Geode, this is from Pratt Steven Seagal. Sorry, Geode's force power staring contest.
Oh, he'd be a
he wins
beast
every
at that.
time.
Oh yeah, for
Until
sure.
they put the googly eyes on.
Yeah.
Then he can't keep a straight eye. Robert sends in $5. Just Robert, no last name, nothing more than that. The Vampire Knight comic that was referenced is called watch me fucking
Le
Chevalier
Chevalier
Vampire.
I was gonna say butcher the hell out of this.
Le Chevalier Vampire. Yeah.
Leave it up to Michael, who's been around. Look it up. It is amazing. Heavy Metal Magazine published it in the US. There you go. How is Heavy Metal doing lately? Because are they still owned by Kevin Eastman?
No, I don't think he owns them anymore. He certainly doesn't run it, and they've gone woke as hell.
That's what I was curious about, because somebody said they were woke as hell, and I'm like, wait, is Kevin still on them? Because I don't think he's really.
No, he's not. He's not. It's another Marvel writer. I forgot the name of him who's running the show now. And,
you want to talk about new comics? The Last Ronin's amazing. If anybody hasn't read any new comics lately, check it out. Eastman and Laird and all those guys that are working on it. Bravo. Anyway, sorry, Andre. I just had to say that.
Yeah, no, by all means. And Stephen Otten says there are many references to Amazon in Nomadland. I'm surprised that it's on Hulu instead of Prime. Any idea why? Well, that would be simply a matter of Hulu outbidding Amazon.
Yeah,
and then it doesn't matter what product placement is in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much, because that's what a lot of these come from. And like I was pointing out, Paramount Plus is a lot of their slate is stuff that's rejected from other places. Because I think Hulu rejected their Pink Ladies series from Greece, and that's why that's on Paramount Plus and a few other things. And that's the other thing. Speaking of Paramount Plus, real quick, since we actually have like 5 minutes to kill before it's 4 hours. I was just gonna say I looked through it, and it's really sad because a lot of their crap is everywhere else. They have nothing that's that exclusive. Even their Dimension and Miramax stuff that they just bought isn't that exclusive. Like, you can still go see all that kind of stuff everywhere. It's really sad. And their Beavis and Butthead selection sucks. It's still the old Mike Judge collection. And I told the story where I accidentally bought season 4 because I just wanted to watch a couple episodes quick without looking for my Blu-ray. And I thought that it was free, and it wasn't. But no, like, they don't have anything on there that really kind of sticks out to you. The only new thing they really have to launch with was that SpongeBob movie, and that's it. And that's already available on like Vudu and Hulu and other places to buy, and Amazon to buy. So like, if you don't want to get Paramount Plus, you can just buy the SpongeBob movie elsewhere.
Yeah, there we go.
They're not doing a good job of making it exclusive.
Yeah, and to make us all feel better, Retro or Michael, Marx47 says, "What expert doesn't want to be able to say I've forgotten more about this than you'll ever know?"
That does actually make me feel better. That's good. That's nice.
So yeah, that's pretty cool right there. And with that, we are for real caught up with super chats and all of that. And on that note, again, thank you to Michael for joining us. Thank you, Script Doctor, for joining as well. Thank you, every single one in the chat. We really appreciate you spending the time watching us. Thank you for all your questions, your engagement, and your super chats. That really helps out. And with that, Mags and many others want to see koalas in the rain.
Absolutely. Let's end up with some koalas in the rain. Thank you again, Michael, for sticking in. It's always awesome to have you here.
Always awesome to be here.
Thanks.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given, koala, koala. Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given, koala.